Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. How's everybody doing? Did you get over the hump? I'm not quite over it yet, guys. I feel like it's a hump every day, and not the good kind. You know, everybody likes a good hump, but not, a bad hump sucks. Anyway, let me say hello to some people in the chat. Thank you for being here, guys. I know more people show up as the time goes on. Melissa Blackman and KC, welcome. I don't think I've seen you here before, so welcome to the show. Happy to have you. Mike, how are you, buddy? Thanks for showing up. Still just one of the most amazing guests that we've had on the show. I learned so much that night. It was incredible. My good buddy Salty, how are you, brother? Miss Mary, Hope. Oh, I'm gonna mess this up. I really hope I don't do this too much of an injustice. Is it Maika? Maike Hofstra? Kristie's backstage laughing at me. Do you know this person? Yes, you do. And I really butchered it, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I feel like an idiot. She'll come on and she'll say hello to you while I'm turning red. Oh, man. Okay, she's from the Netherlands. So then all right, there's a buffer there, right? Like there's a learning curve because I apologize. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. Hi, Mom. Thanks for being here. Sonia, Larry Hart. What's up, man? Welcome. Frankie Brown. Thank you guys so much for being here. I've been trying since we started the show to get somebody like Kristie on the show. I've really been enamored with psychics and mediumship for a very long time. We were just talking backstage about Sylvia Brown, and my mother was the first person to introduce me to Sylvia Brown on the Montel Williams show, and that was like the beginning of when I started wanting to know more about that whole world and process. And I've been to psychic mediums and mediums before, and it's just such a fascinating topic to me. I was not ever able to find anybody who I felt was the real deal, right? Because unfortunately, we all know that in anything, there are people out there that just fake the funk. And so I wasn't going to have just anybody on because that's just not what we do. But after I had Mike on and we talked about Kristie, I said, Mike, I got to have Kristie on the show. He said, she'll do it. And I said, all right, well, I got to reach out then. And so tonight, let's welcome our guest, Kristie London from Where's My Sage. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Well, we talked through Messenger for like the weeks leading up to the show.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh, this is going to be a good show. I could tell just because of your humor. I'm like, this is going to be good. We're going to have a good time at very least.
Well, we're both sick and twisted and demented. Our conversations flew very easily. That's us for either of us, but okay.
Right. The photo conversation was one of my favorites. That was one of my favorites. She sent me 4 photos. We're putting it out there. She sent me 4 photos and she said, you pick. I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. I know how this goes. She sent 4 photos. I pick one, and then I'm the guy, I'm the jerk that picked the photo that she liked the least. Or she's like, well, what was wrong with the other photos? I know how this goes, right? I know that that there's sometimes no winning in things like that. She said, don't mess it up. So I eeny, meeny, miny, mowed it.
But I was very, very impressed that you would even admit that. You truly had the entire like back and forth conversation. Like I didn't even have to say anything. Girls, he's got this all figured out. Like, he knew exactly what from our perspective what it would be like.
There are people who would disagree with that statement.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it was, it is what it is. I feel like it's right in front of me.
Oh, it was fun. It was funny though. It was really funny. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. you know, we both talked backstage, and we talked about how we both had a connection to Sylvia Brown when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
For like, I don't know a lot about how this works though. Like, I know what a medium is, I know what a medium does, and there's probably a lot of other people out there who don't understand this. And
Right.
so when did you know that you had these abilities?
That's like a loaded question because, there are some people who are naturally open to this their whole lives.
Mhm.
And so it's all you know. So who you are and what happens and how it happens is just the norm for you. You don't realize necessarily that other people aren't experiencing things the way you are or having things happen the way you are. And then there's other people who truly have an awakening at some point in life where they really were not experiencing any of this kind of thing before. So it becomes very different for them. So I have been open to it my whole life. It's all I've ever known. So looking back, I can say I've always known.
Oh gosh, Mike.
I'd rather be a medium than a large or a medium at large. We'll get that joke out of the way right now because I always hear that one.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, but yeah, so I mean, honestly, looking back, it was my whole life, and I always knew I was different. And you will hear a lot of us say that, different, but you don't necessarily classify it as anything or put a label or a title or a name to it. Unless you have a network or a support network of people who already know and can teach you, which I did not. So it was literally just for me learning, figuring out, adapting, adjusting as I got older. So when I truly started to understand that there was something different about me, it was really around high school. And it's kind of like what we were talking about backstage, what you mentioned, watching Montel Williams, because in the mid 90s, it was, just starting to come out. And he was one of the ones who started really putting this out there and into the world, right, with Sylvia Brown. So I found myself really drawn, excited actually to go watch any episode he had. And at first, she was only on once in a while, and then it took off and she was on all the time. And I couldn't get enough of watching it because I could relate to her. So because there was nothing else like it, there was paranormal investigating wasn't anything that I was into or even really thought anything about back then. So it was really just more about me and what I could do. So it was really around high school where I started to grasp and understand that these things were happening with me, although I still was in that, no, this isn't like, oh, okay. Even though deep inside I was told, yeah, and I could feel, yeah, you can do these things, and then, but on the outside, you're like, no, me, no, so it wasn't until then my early to mid 20s when it really started to blossom and open up some more, or where I was, I guess, more aware of it. On that level. And then the door totally swung open, and I'm really making myself sound old because I'm going through the decades here. What the hell? It wasn't until my early 30s where all of a sudden it was a friend of mine that I had grown up with who lived down the street. Actually, her house was haunted, and she came back into the area and we reconnected on Facebook. And then one day she posts that she and her son were taking classes to practice or to develop their mediumship skills. Does anybody want to be a guinea pig for me? And so I said, sure, you can read me, no problem. So she and her son came over to my house, and I ended up reading them as much as they read me. And it was like weird things started happening in my house, and it was just crazy. And that was it. Like I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to try. It just happened. And then it was like all of a sudden everything clicked, and I felt like I finally came into my own, and I was finally home, and I was finally comfortable in my own skin. Although I was totally shocked, and I still couldn't believe it.
Right.
But then, I talked to a friend of mine who, my best friend, we've been friends since we were 5 or 6. And, when I had said something similar to her way back then, she said, she looked at me and she said, my nickname's Crit. Crit, you've been reading me our whole lives. And it stopped me when she said that, because I was like, huh, I guess I have been. I never realized how people saw me and how they were perceiving me and what I was doing, because again, it was just me and it's all I knew. That's just who I was. So yeah, no, to hear her say that, especially someone who's literally known me my whole life, it was pretty cool. So yeah, here I am.
It's just so amazing. Like when I first watched her, my mom started trying to go see her. Like I was blown away when I read the books. That was it. Like those things like pushed me over the edge. I said, I have to talk to somebody. Like I have to find somebody who does this. And I ended up doing that. My mother had gone prior to me going to somebody, and what the lady told her all ended up happening. Like all of it. We just talked about this prior to you coming on the show. She called and she was like, "What are you going to ask her?" I'm like, I don't, I know what I'm going to ask kind of, but I usually just kind of wing it,
Right.
And so,
sometimes that's the best way to do it.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I do.
It's organic. It just kind of works that way. It's organic. It works out the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
So, what are you going to ask her? And I'm like, well, I'll probably just ask her the typical stuff. And, so that people.
What's typical stuff?
That kind of thing. Like, how did you know that you had these abilities? And like,
I'm just busting your chops.
Yeah, I know. But even after having some of these things happen, like I guess there's a part of you that would maybe think that the shock and surprise that these people have these abilities and they're real would go away, and it just didn't. Like any time that I ever talked to the lady that I talked to, when she would tell me something, I was always like completely shocked, completely surprised, always going, "Holy cow, I can't believe it. I can't believe it." Is it that way for you? Like when you have like your guides, right? They talk to you, and when you communicate with them and they tell you something and you see something and it happens or it connects with somebody, do you get that shock and do you get that?
Yeah, I'm still in awe and wonder sometimes when I say things, or if I'm doing something, or and yes, 100%. Because I was that kid who used to sit, on the floor in the living room with a deck of cards and go, 10, crap, it's a king. 8, crap, it's a 2. Like, and doing that, I was doing it because I felt like I should be able to do this. I should. Why am I not able to? And then I would get 1 out of 52 right. So yeah, it still amazes me. I'm still in awe and wonder, but it's because I really and truly view this. I am very blessed to have this ability. This is a privilege, not a right. And I am very aware of the fact that if I abuse or misuse my gifts in any way, they can be taken away. It's, or they'll go away, I'll say, I do believe in my higher power. That's where they come from. It's not that I'm not allowed to mess up or make mistakes, or, I'm human. I can even get angry and put karma out there and be like, oh crap. Okay. I'm sorry, but like truly misuse or truly be dishonest about things. Because it's also a responsibility. There's people think, oh, you can just do whatever and it'll, it's just all good and, it's all about you. It's not. If I'm called to do something, whether it's to help someone or give a message in the middle of Wegmans, I have to do that. And, my family's experienced it. Actually, Mike and I just took a trip to Ohio a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you talked about that.
So, it happens, but that's my job. That's why I'm here. Right. So that's it. I mean, it's that simple, but I feel like the day I am no longer excited or humbled or in awe of even what I can do, that's going to be it for me. I think, like that I'll know that I shouldn't be doing it anymore, or that it's no longer my time.
I think that that's a great point that you just made. And I think that happens with, just, a lot of things, right? Like, you can compare that to when somebody knows that they have a purpose, that they were meant to do something. Like, let's say I was a fighter for years, right? And
What type
well, mixed martial arts is what
of-
I did, yeah. And so, like, one of the things that you would hear from people, like fighters or older guys who, you know, they were at the end of their career, was the minute that you were no longer nervous going into that fight was the minute you know that it's time to quit.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's like kind of across the board for everything. I'm not saying being nervous, but every purpose that there's something like that, right? Where you just
Right.
know, like, okay, now I need to kind of hang it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that, you know, that what you just said, I think is great. So do you now, like, I want to make sure I get this right. Are you a psychic medium?
So a lot of people will use both those terms together, and it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just when you're a medium, you already are intuitive. So to me, it's just redundant, because I used to even call myself a psychic medium. But I just, you know, after I added Reiki Master onto that, it just got too long. So, I mean, when you're psychic, it means you can read energy. So you can communicate with your guides. You can read energy that's around you. You can read people's energy, things, residual, but that's like where it ends. You're not connecting with the energy of people or animals who have passed away. So when you're a medium, it goes to that deeper place. It opens you up even more. So you're already intuitive. You know, you're already connected with your guides, and then you're able to connect also with spirit. So I kind of feel like it's redundant. So am I psychic? Yes, absolutely. People will use the term psychic or intuitive. Yes, absolutely I am. To me, it's just already there. So
the medium covers all of that, basically.
Yeah,
What you're saying.
yeah.
Okay. So is there any difference? Like, you know, people hear these terms and they just assume that you can see the future. Right. I mean, I think that's one of these things that people assume, that anybody who has like these gifts can just see the future. Right.
Yeah.
You can tell me my winning lotto numbers, and
Yeah, I
you
wish.
can tell me everything that's going to happen in my life. And is that's not the case, correct?
Correct. It's not like we walk around and we know everything. We're not supposed to know everything.
Right.
Even when I give a reading, you know, sometimes we have this conversation, you know, my client and I, and you have to understand there's a balance. Free will is a huge component of all of this. So I can give a reading, and in that moment, everything is spot on and everything is, you know, accurate. And they can even validate it and say, yes, this is the path I'm on. Yes, you've nailed all my plans that I already have, you know, written down, whatever the case is. But they can leave me, make a different decision, and certain things are going to change.
Right.
You know, I've given spiritual guidance to people over the years where they come see me more regularly. And that's what I do. I help them through situations or through their life. And they'll come back and say, okay, well, this, and this happened. And yes, now I'm here and this change occurred. But this and this didn't happen. I wonder why. And I'm like, well, that's why you're here. Let's find out. So come to find out, it was either their free will that changed it, or the fact that they succumbed to somebody else's free will. Because people don't realize that, you know, we are all affected by the how do I want to explain that? Free will. It's like when you skip a rock in water, right? And you skip a rock at a lake, you can see the ripple. Eventually you can't see the ripple anymore, but it doesn't mean the ripple stopped. That ripple has caused change and affected everything in its path. And it trickles down or trickles out. So that's kind of what happens with free will. So maybe all of a sudden, you know, I told you you were going to get this promotion, and you were indeed in line for this promotion, but you know what? Your boss has a gambling problem, and he unfortunately decided to go gamble, you know, everyone's retirement away. And now there is no job, you know, so it's not that you weren't going to get it. You were going to get it, but unfortunately his free will changed that. Right. Now, so are you know, okay, well, why didn't you see that coming? Well, I mean, okay, why would I have to see that coming? I can't predict everything, right?
Right.
Because you can't just, like, no one can predict what I'm going to say or do or think in the moment, because we're human.
Right.
But free will that helps us learn the lessons we need to learn and achieve the goals that we need to achieve in order to ascend, for our souls to ascend, to accomplish the things we set out to accomplish in this lifetime.
Right. Yeah. And really, if you were to know everything and you were to get messages about it, you'd be so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't have a second to yourself.
Right. Well, and you know what? It's not right, because could I, if I really wanted to focus on somebody? Most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I could probably know pretty much anything I wanted to. Would my guides say, no, you're not supposed to? Sure, they could step in too. But why would I want to? And why would I want to put somebody in that position? Like even at work, it's not a secret, but I don't talk about it in front of my patients just because I don't want them to be uncomfortable. And I don't want my coworkers or other people that I'm around. It's not a secret, but to always have it in your face. Oh, someone can do this, because what if they're having a bad day or they did something that they don't want anyone else to know? I don't want to know that any more than they don't want me to know that, right? So it's not right for people to have to worry about their privacy and their own lives being invaded all the time, and that is not okay. So, and you're right, that would be a lot. That would be a huge burden to carry.
Yeah,
and I don't want to have enough going on.
And I think that's something too, where people get nervous, right? Like when I talked about this with some people prior to the show, and people get nervous when you mention psychic or medium to certain people. They're like, I don't want to talk to any psychic or medium. I don't, because I did this when I was 15 and I've never told anybody, and they're going to know. It's like, well, they probably don't want to know it anyway. I'm sure they're not going to go digging to find out. But it's just funny to me when people like have these assumptions about what it's like. And that's why I'm asking these questions, because like my mother was asking me and I'm telling her, I don't really know all the ins and outs.
Right.
So
I'd be lying if I said it never happened. I mean, there are times where, excuse me, I do pick up on something with somebody and I'm like, oh, or, oh, hey, good. I don't know, it could be positive. It's not always about the negative. But again, it's about taking the responsibility of these gifts seriously and what we're supposed to do with them. Just because we know something doesn't mean we're supposed to share it or say it out loud. So, again, it's about having our ego in check and keeping that balance, because if we use or abuse just because they showed us something or we were able to pick up on something, they meaning our spirit guides or spirit, doesn't mean we were supposed to, if we abuse that information, then, that's our ego getting in the way, and that's not allowed.
Yeah.
So,
when we were backstage, we talked briefly, and I want to say this right now because it was funny. I'm not going to say what it was. I'm just going to say that we talked briefly, and Kristie was pretty spot on in a way, right? And this is why I bring this up, because sometimes you'll get a message and it won't be exact, right? You'll get something like Mike explained how maybe you'll be in the woods and you'll tell them you need to look for a heart, something with a heart. And they, and to most people, when you hear heart, you're thinking heart, like you're thinking of this thing here.
It's not always literal.
Right, exactly, right. And so that backstage when we talked, it wasn't literal, but it fit perfectly with what we were discussing.
Right.
It's really, really, I was like, holy shit. I think she kind of got it. Without getting it, she got it, right? But it's so crazy. Tell me, so you go on these investigations to haunted places.
Yes.
And so when you get in a place like that, some of these places are, like, I've been in some, and some of them, even for people like me who don't have these gifts, are overwhelming. You can feel things, like, stuff is there.
So I'm going to say to you the same thing that, I've said to other people. If you're saying to me in the same breath, well, for someone like me who doesn't have these gifts, but I can still feel it when I walk in, what the hell do you think you have then?
Well, okay.
That's your intuition. We all have it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not capable of communicating with spirit, your intuition allows you to pick up on the energy, whether it's spirit's energy, whether it's your spirit guides, whether it's, a ghost that did not cross over, whether it's just residual or a memory, energy of the place, you do have it. We all have it. It's your gut instinct. It's your gut feeling. It's that's where your intuition is. So you have to trust that. So we do have it, and that's where people a lot of times get off track or don't realize, and then that's where they kind of get confused.
It's we talk about this a lot in the Sasquatch world, right? Because that's where that's kind of my ballpark, right? Is the Sasquatch thing. One of the things that comes up often is like mind speak and like people argue about what gifts the Sasquatch may have or whatever. But one of the things I always say, I don't have any of the answers. That's part of the excitement about this stuff is like, I don't have answers. The Sasquatch thing is still such a riddle and a mystery that it's so fun, but I certainly have intuition, right? And so when I go into the woods and the hair on my arm stands up and I can feel eyes just staring at me. I mean, it's such an overwhelming, heavy feeling that 5 feet back, it didn't feel that way. And now all of a sudden it does. That's that intuition that you're talking about. And I know something's there. I don't know what it is because most of the time you don't see it, but it's there.
Right. And who's to say it's not a spiritual energy of some sort?
Exactly. Yeah, that's another thing that I've been talking about with a couple people lately too, is that I think because we don't have answers to a lot of this stuff in this field, people go into a place where there's reported activity, Sasquatch activity, or there's there's been activity because there's footprints, there's been hair samples, there's somebody seen one there, and they have these other experiences, and then it kind of gets put on the Sasquatch, right? Oh, I didn't see anything, but I heard something, and then this happened. And who's to say that there's not spiritual energy there? Why couldn't it be? I mean,
because there's spiritual energy everywhere.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
It may be somebody you brought with you. Maybe your dad decided to follow you or to be there with you because you're in the woods, and you end up picking up on that for whatever reason in that situation or in that environment. Sure. You didn't pick up on it before you got there. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go back to the haunted thing, because this is nothing. My mom is so she doesn't want me to do anything to do with like paranormal stuff. She freaks her out, scares her. She thinks it's just like, you don't do it because you don't know what you're going to get.
She's not wrong.
Yeah, right. I agree. I understand that.
You have to be aware. You have to know what you're doing.
And so when you go into these places, like, you sometimes run into negative stuff, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. Yes.
What's that like? I mean, is it somebody screaming? Is it come in different forms?
It comes in different forms. And when you run into nasty stuff, it doesn't always mean you're dealing with the big D word, demons.
Right.
You have lower level energies out there. You have human spirits that did not cross over. I always reference the Insidious movies because I feel like it really is the perfect example or the closest I can get to describing how I see and believe in work. So, if you cross over into the light, even if you have work to do, because you can do work on the other side. And just, by the way, spirit has free will. There he is. There's the big guy. So spirit can choose to talk to you or not talk to you, whether they're crossed or not crossed. So people don't realize that. So, when someone comes up to me and says, oh, okay. Oh, hear this. Okay. Read me. Well, number one, I might not want to because I might be stressed out or bogged down with my own life because, hello, I am human. Right. And two, I might not be able to. Our energy might not mesh. Or in that moment, I'm not supposed to, right? So it can get a little crazy that way. But
you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting something right now?
Mm-hmm.
No way.
I just had this lady come up on me. She's your grandma.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. Don't even do it.
She's a little lady. She's smaller. She has tighter, curlier hair. Looks white, gray, silver. She says you're a good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy.
I don't even. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you this. My grandmother passed when I was like 11 or 12. My mom's mother.
But what happened when you were 5? Because she's bringing me back to like when you were 5.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Is that when she got sick?
No.
She's showing me like a cane or a walker. Actually, it's a walker. So that either means she had one and she had to use it, or she's letting me know symbolically that she had trouble moving around or getting around on her own.
Not. I mean, maybe not when she. Mike's saying you're about to get a reading. No, she never had any trouble moving around. I mean,
even if it was towards the end, did she use a walker at some point? Even if it was like, did she have a hip replacement? It doesn't have to mean that she had it for a long period of time or it was towards the end of her life. Did she at one point have a walker? And it looks like the kind where you had both of the, it wasn't just like a single, it was a double. It was,
I don't think so, but legs. She did break her leg at one point in the backyard, and or her ankle. There's my mom right there. Maybe when she broke her ankle, and then that was right when she had a cane. See, I don't remember that.
Okay, thank you.
And then she got sick after that with something, right, Mom? Like she ended up in the hospital with like pneumonia and something else in her lungs.
And how old were you when that happened?
Gosh, I had to have been about 8 or 9. Yeah, around there. When I was 5, though, that was probably around the time that my father stopped coming around. I would guess right around then. I would imagine that at that point, my mother probably, would go to her if she needed help with me.
Yeah, because your grandma says to me, I had to step up after that. We
spent every weekend over there.
Mm-hmm. And she says it was very important to her, and she made sure that could happen. She also says to you, you need to start praying to Jesus.
Oh, boy.
You need to find your faith again. And then she shows me a shed in a backyard.
A shed in a backyard?
It looks like or maybe it looks wooden almost, like an old shed. Not big, small, just enough to put like lawnmower and things like that in there.
I'm looking into the chat to see if my mom's got any kind of thoughts on that. A shed in a backyard. I'm trying to think.
And the roof, it looks like it's flat and it kind of comes down like this. So like it hangs over the door, so you get the structure and then the roof would come over
the front
door a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they had a shed. No shed. Yeah. No, they didn't have any shed, and we didn't either. I don't know what that's about. Grandpa Daysma?
Yeah. This might be somebody else. Maybe it's not that grandmother anymore. So this can happen. So we think we're dealing with one, and then I start seeing something else, and you can't relate it to her, but you can relate it to somebody or something else. So does that make sense? Can you?
I mean, my great grandparents, he didn't have that shed. He didn't have shed in the backyard. No, he didn't. That's right. It was no, he didn't. I'm sorry. No, and when you described her, I thought about my mother's grandmother.
Your great grandmother.
That was who I thought about, but I wasn't really close with her.
It doesn't matter. People who died before you were born can come forward. People you didn't like or get along with could come forward. Literally anybody that you had any interaction with, even for 2 minutes your whole life, can come forward for you.
Okay,
I did feel like there were 2. I am picking up on great grandmother. but she made me feel grandmother. So grandmother could be like across the board.
Right, kind of a broad thing.
Who had the issue like in this area here? I feel like it was almost more connected to a male because I'm getting I had a pain like right over in here.
Mom didn't. This is kind of crazy. Didn't Uncle Dick? Isn't that how he passed?
Smacked his
Didn't he
head.
have brain cancer?
Smacked his head. I feel like it was like wham.
I think he had brain cancer. I think, if I remember.
So that might have been why he's making me feel. Maybe it felt like that because it was like an ache.
No,
that I couldn't control behind them.
No. Then what? Ma, you got to help me out here because I was young.
Sorry, guys. This is what happens when you deal with the medium sometimes.
Yeah, I was little. I mean, like I said, my grandmother passed when I was like 11 or 12, and my great grandmother passed before that. I don't even know.
When you were around 5? Maybe that's the 5-year-old. Something happened when you were 5 years old. Somebody over here. So this is like a good example of like what you were asking me. So what people don't realize is we are only as strong as our souls are ascended. And what that means is we don't all die and become equal. Our souls are not as strong or capable across the board, right? So, this is an exchange of energy.
Right.
My energy is different than Bernice Golden's was, and Chelsea Gill's is, and Amy Perry Lane is. Like your energies have to match. And then when you throw a person into the mix or an environment with energy into the mix, all of that has to combine in some way and mesh in some way that the communication can happen. Right. So sometimes it's stronger than others. So some people may come to me and say, wow, I'm really shocked that my grandma didn't come through as strong as she usually does. I've been to other mediums and, she's come through really strong. That could be for a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe our energy didn't mesh well, but she still came forward the best she could with our connection. It could be that maybe she just didn't have a lot to say this time, whatever the case is. But, spirit does the best they can based on what they're capable of. You can have a 95-year-old person pass away and leave behind a 5-year-old grandchild. That 5-year-old grandchild, that their soul may be more ascended than that 95-year-old. So maybe more, not advanced, like better than, but just more capable, stronger, ascended because they've lived more lifetimes, or even if they haven't, they've accomplished their goals. Therefore, they have been able to ascend and grow. Does that make sense?
It does. No, it makes total sense. While you were talking, though, I did think about something.
Oh, okay.
Around the time I would guess I was around 4, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
Something that haunted me for years happened. Like for you, like I still remember it as clear as day. I was sitting in the living room in our apartment. It was a 2-family. And side by side, right? So the kitchen came through to the living room, was all open. I was sitting in front of the TV and I was watching TV, and my mom was washing her hair in the sink. Sorry, Mom, I'm telling the story. And my brother was just a baby because we're 4 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like in his crib or something. My dad was upstairs getting ready for work. A man tried to cut the screen door with a giant knife and come in. And I saw him. I looked over because I heard the noise and I saw him. My mom's head's in the sink. Mm. And I don't remember if I said something to her, but she ended up seeing him. She screamed. My dad came running downstairs half naked and the guy took off.
Oh my God.
Well, you assumed that this man was there to rob the house. Well, that wasn't what he was there for. He was a rapist.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that like the PTSD that I had from that, and still to this day, I see it like a movie. Mm-hmm. It's as clear now as it was then. It was so scary, and that wasn't the only thing. I mean, we had other things happen at that place that just stuck with me.
I feel like the energy in the land Remind me to tell you something else that I'm picking up on about that situation. I don't want to say it out here, but the energy in the land with that house, that's Micah. That's how you pronounce her name. Hi,
Micah.
Micah.
Damn.
Mike screws it up every time, and he's got the same name basically as she does. So he's always butchering the names.
I'm sorry,
She's
Micah.
For years.
I took such a pretty name and I made it into something just ridiculous.
Trust me, and she's in the Netherlands, and she stays up in the middle of the night to watch us.
Well, thank you very much, Micah.
Yeah.
It's very nice to meet you.
Love you. So, but it was an older style house, correct?
Yeah.
Because I can kind of see, like even the screen, I feel like it had like a wooden bar that went across the middle of your door.
Probably. I mean,
not bar, but like a wooden, you know how the older style lighter doors were, and then, but that, I don't like that whole area that you were living in at the time. It was not a good area.
No, it wasn't a good area at all.
Mm-mm.
And the crazy part, the craziest part, our neighbor across the street, who was friends with us, was part of the police department. And he ended up becoming a detective or a chief or something. But I mean, like, that's the neighborhood was bad, and you had police in it. Like it was there was gas stations down in the corner that you could see from the upstairs rooms, like where there was violence all the time, and it was a bad spot. And it was the 80s, like the crack era. It was crack was heavy in that city, and it was no good.
Yeah, the 80s was good for a lot of things. But, just to comment on something she said here, that Micah said here, it's important to remember, too, when you receive a reading, or even like what's happening with you now, because not everything is point blank or literal. Like, your grandmother's communicating the best she can with me right now, so I'm just giving you what I'm receiving. You don't always make connections. And when you're having a reading or you're on the spot like this, it can be very overwhelming. So you don't always process it right away or understand it. So I get messages days, weeks, months, years later from people going, oh my God, like the light bulb went off, or, oh my gosh, the connection was finally made. Sometimes you're not meant to make a connection with me in the moment. You're meant to make a connection later on, maybe have a moment with a family member that's going to be important for the two of you, or when the time is right, you'll put the pieces together with what I said, and then it's going to help you with something later. So it's not always about, can you, well, I couldn't validate this and I couldn't validate that. It's not always about that,
Sure. Yeah.
Get that. But
no, I understand. And that's happened before too. That's happened before with when I had, when I talked to, the other lady that I used to talk to, she'd tell me something I wouldn't make any sense to me in that moment. And then later on I'd go, oh, okay.
Right.
Now I get it.
Right. Yeah.
I was very close with my grandmother though. Like she was,
What's up with raspberries? Why do I keep getting raspberries?
Raspberries. I don't know. I mean, other than the fact that I think raspberry is like my favorite flavor in the world, but that's weird. I'm drinking raspberry juice right now. I'm not even joking. I am drinking raspberry ice Crystal Light right now. That's what's.
And you know what's favorites? I have that too.
You know what's weird though? Okay, normally people would think this isn't crazy, but I have been drinking the same flavor of juice. Well, it's water flavoring. It's not juice.
Right.
For, I don't know, probably a year. This is the first time that I've changed that flavor. That's kind of strange. That's weird.
And I'll tell you, it's funny because my grandmother, who is still around for years and years, she canned and jarred like everybody. And she would always make her own homemade jelly and jam, and her raspberry was my absolute favorite.
Oh.
And weren't we visiting her last night? My daughter and I went over there. My mom's been staying with her, and my cousin was over there too, and just chatting with her. And her sister, my great aunt who lives down the road, was making jelly this week. And we were talking about how the raspberry is so rare and everybody always fights over it when they make it, because my grandmother hasn't made it in a bunch of years now. But Yeah, it's hysterical, and I always buy the raspberry because I don't get it from the family anymore.
Oh yeah, that's my
I'm not
favorite.
gonna cut that. So yeah, that's funny.
That's funny.
But
That's
okay, so what about blowing raspberries though? Blowing raspberries.
blowing.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, like that, like
Like,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
like just
That I don't know. I'm not sure. She don't. She didn't really. She didn't do anything like that. I
no,
don't think.
no, it may have nothing to do with your grandma. I have no idea what that means. It could be
You have
something
no. Oh,
about
this
now
is.
or here.
Hmm.
But like the here and the now, it doesn't necessarily have to do with your grandmother. I don't know if it does.
I don't know. The tough part about, I think, some of these things is that, like, if it's coming from my grandmother or a relative, um, like who's connected to her, my mother. I was young when these people were alive, so a lot of things I may not know or remember that
Right.
my mom might.
And that's really good. And when I do parties, especially, it's really nice to know. I don't like to know ahead of time, but when we start finding out, because I can say something to somebody, right? It's talk about perspectives, right, and how people see us, and how we all have different experiences with people, and think they're one way, and other people will think they're another. Like I can give a message to somebody and describe someone to them, and the person in front of me is going, no, I don't really think their personality was like that. No, no, that's not accurate. And then cousin across the room is going, where did you grow up? Because that's absolutely how
Mhm.
it was. So you don't realize the different experiences. Like grandma could have been one way with one cousin and one way with another. It just depends, or whoever. So it's funny to see that. So it's nice when you can get the extra validation, and then you
Yeah,
learn more about that person, that's in spirit, just by seeing how their friends and family remember them.
yeah, because like we were kids, so I hung out with my little cousins, and that's what we did. Like, and the adults were with the adults, and
Right. Right.
sometimes you had interactions with them. It was usually like you go in the house, you give a kiss, a hug, and then you're off doing your thing. Yeah, that was it. My grandmother and me was totally different. I mean, I spent every weekend over there. I was, yeah, I was the firstborn grandchild.
You were spoiled.
She, she was, she was
She
saying,
says you were a spoiled brat.
oh, she did it. Yeah, she did it. She did anything I wanted. She made sure I had it, like every weekend.
Yep.
Every weekend. Yeah.
She didn't care what your mother said too, she says.
Probably not. Probably not. She's a special lady, that's for sure. It was funny. We talk about it now. I never even heard her complain. Like, I never heard her complain. I never heard her swear. Um, she was really like the closest thing to a saint there was. And my grandfather, God bless him. He was he was a great man, and I loved him too. But they were like polar opposites in.
Well, she said oil and water.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of this grumpy curmudgeon of a guy for years. Huh?
He's tall.
Well, I mean, no, he wasn't that tall, but I don't even remember how short or tall she was, because I felt like
Right, you were
every time I
little.
saw her, she was sitting down.
Well, I've got this gentleman over here who feels like a grandfather to you, and he's taller and he's leaner. And I get this, I get more of an authoritative, maybe military style from him.
Oh, I don't know who that might be. Taller, leaner, authoritative. I don't know. The other tough part about some of this stuff too is that I don't know like any of my father's family. I literally, I don't know. I met his father once. I never met my great grandparents, at least that I know of.
Right.
I know like my two uncles, but I don't know anything else. My father's dad. She's saying my father's dad.
Okay, because and see, that's the nice thing too is to hear, like, for us to know I don't remember, because that explains a lot about how they may or may not come forward too. If they want you to know they're here, they're going to come forward in a way where they know if you have resources, you can validate them later. So that goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, but they're not going to overwhelm you with information that they know you can't validate. They're going to give you enough to go back and look at pictures or talk to someone who's alive who knew that, to validate and make that connection later. This man was also kind of quiet.
Probably, yeah. It probably was him. He was.
He too, though, the way he's coming forward tells me he was unable to communicate either effectively or at all at the time he passed. It could have been 2 minutes before he died or 6 months. It doesn't matter. He's making a lot of hand gestures. He's not saying anything.
Okay, that's kind of weird. So he was in the military. He was in the Navy.
Thank you.
The hand gestures, the first thing I thought of, he was a boxer.
So maybe it was more like a this.
Maybe. I mean, possibly.
They were kind of just like, yeah, it was, yeah. Okay.
But, like I said, I only met him once. And he was very, he was kind of stoic.
Yes. That's how he is right now. He's just kind of here.
Yeah, he was kind of there. I mean, he said, he obviously said hello to me, gave me a handshake, and that was, it was very kind of quiet. Yeah.
He had a heart issue. Even if it's not what he died of, he had a heart issue.
I don't even know what he died of, to be honest with you.
And he said to you, you may not know me, but I definitely know you. He keeps an eye on you. He watches out for you, and he tells me you're very much like him.
We certainly have had some things in common.
Okay, there you go.
We definitely have.
He's very proud of you, though.
Well, that's nice.
He says, going back to our conversation earlier, he says, back in my day, what you did, I would never have been able to do. And that's why he's so proud of you.
Back in his day, what I did.
Remember what we talked about before we went on the show?
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, guys. It's personal. I'm not airing.
Yeah. Okay.
With any of my other clients. So, yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah,
man still needs to know his worth.
What's that?
He says a man still needs to know his worth.
Yeah. It's something that, I mean, that's I don't have any trouble ever talking about these things. I think it's important that people understand that, like man, woman, child, doesn't matter. We're all human beings. I struggle with my self-worth, right? Just like anybody else would. We talked about this prior to the show in text, like, it happens. I'm a human being. Like, it's okay. I try to make that a point as often as I can, like on the show when these things come up, because when people buy into these stereotypes and things, like you're just helping yourself like stay sick, right? It's okay. Like, talk about it, get it
Absolutely.
out. It's all right.
Yeah.
That's funny you mentioned that. That's
just because there's no other way for me to describe it or to say it, because I don't know any better way. Women are allowed to be in touch with their more masculine or tougher side, and men are certainly allowed to be more in touch with a softer, gentler side. Right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We're human beings. It is what it is. We should all have
both
different sides to us. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't. Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're weak. Doesn't mean you're less of a man, or
doesn't mean you're weird. It means you're human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's funny. That's crazy. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's really it's really crazy hearing that about him coming through. Like, because my connection with my father is just, it's always been something that's I've had so many issues with throughout my life.
But it's not your fault.
Yeah.
He said your father's always been that way.
It's really funny because he even said it to one of my uncles about my father. He said, something's wrong with him. Something's wrong with him. But when you're going through those things as a kid, You can't process that. You don't understand that. You just think it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you carry that wound throughout your life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And just anybody in general who lives with anything like that, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, especially when you try to see the positive and the good in somebody because you love them and you care about them. You know, it's, yeah.
100%. Yeah. Mike, that's, yeah.
See? Yep. And Mike also has, I'm sure you guys probably touched on that, a martial arts background too. So, you know,
Yeah.
the center chi and having that self-control and connecting on a spiritual level, that is all a part of all of this. You know, it's whether you're practicing martial arts or not, but that's a very good, it's a very good way to practice and a discipline help you get to that point or that spot, you know.
Oh, Micah. Micah says she's struggling too. I'm sorry, dear. I'm sorry. I know the feeling. Trust me. I know it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the martial arts was a huge thing for me. Like, like I said, my grandfather on my father's side was a boxer. My uncle boxed. Like, this is in my blood, right? They were Irish. The Irish are fighters by nature, right? That's what the Irish did. They had to fight for everything. And so when I got into the mixed martial arts, like, I think it was one of the greatest things I ever did for myself because it really helped me in so many ways. So many.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I had to quit because I got hurt. But
well, I got to take care of yourself too, though.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy. Wow. I got super emotional right away when you said your grandmother. I'm like, oh man, here we go.
I have that effect on people. Sorry.
Oof, goodness gracious. I was like literally going, don't do it. Don't do it.
Why not? We just had this talk 30 seconds ago.
I know, but I'm trying to be professional here.
I think people want more real. I think you are being professional. It's not like you're going to be, you know, having a tantrum and crying your eyes out, right?
Well, they've seen me cry on this show.
Well, then there you go. See?
Yeah, they've seen me.
People like real and genuine. They don't want fake and bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah,
Get my ticker out, Mike.
I won't. I'm not that guy. Like, I can't be something I'm not. You know, like my mom gets mad because I curse a lot, but I'm like, you know, Mom, like that's just me. Like that's how I express myself. And I know, you know, if I'm in like if I'm at a funeral or if I'm, you know, whatever, and like I know when to tone it down and not, you know. But like, it's just who I am. It doesn't, to me, it's like silly. It's like, it's just a word somebody said one day, don't say this, it's bad. You know, like somebody made that rule one day and then everybody went, oh my God, we can't say shit because it's just awful. It's awful. Well, what if they told you one day, don't say love? Love is a terrible word. Sure. Then you'd be scared of that word. Like, how silly is that?
That's a very good point.
That's just me, though. That's just me.
I can't argue the logic. That's for sure.
You know, words, they don't have power unless you give it to them.
True.
But anyway, yeah, I can't be anything but who I am. I just can't. I spent so many years of my life not knowing who I was and trying to figure out who that was by pretending to be different people. Mm-hmm. And like finally just was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And part of that was trying to protect myself too, because I was so wounded. Mm-hmm. And then finally I just was like, yeah, I can't do this. I just have to be me.
Right.
Like, no matter what.
I think most of us at some point in our lives, excuse me, if nothing else, put on a show, put on an act.
Yeah, of course we do.
You know? And, you know, after a while, you kind of get to a point where you're like, no more. Because I had to do that a lot growing up. And it was, you had to plaster a smile on your face and, you know, just pretend everything was fine.
It gets exhausting.
It does. And it changes you and it ruins you on the inside. It's not healthy at all.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I spent years trying to be like scary to people. because I just didn't want people near me. I didn't want to get hurt.
Mhm.
That was the defense, right? It was like,
Yep.
let's get, I did martial arts because I liked martial arts, but then there was a part of it was like, well, no one's gonna bother me because I do this. I'm 240 pounds and I'm tattooed and but like in the end, it didn't matter. Like none of that mattered really, because I could try to put that facade up,
Mhm.
and most people could see right through it. They knew that wasn't who I was. Yeah, it's
You're a
crazy.
pushover. You're a great big teddy bear.
I am. I'm a huge teddy bear. Like I mean, don't mess with the people that I love. Then I'm a Tasmanian devil. But otherwise, no.
For all of us.
I'm so easygoing and like, yeah. Put a kitten in my lap, you'll see who I am.
Awesome.
I'll start baby talking. Oh, you're a little baby. You're so cute. Well, look at Hope. That's what Hope just said. She just said, just show Kyle your pets.
Oh yeah, we had that talk too. Yes.
I told you. Yep. You want to know who I am? You put an animal in front of me. You'll see. That's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
Melissa says she's the same. Just expressive words. I curse like a sailor. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks for coming on here, Melissa.
Is this a friend of yours also?
She's a follower of ours. She's been watching our show for a long time now. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the best things about this stuff, right? About this, like the YouTube thing and the internet can be a very toxic place, like super toxic at times.
Yes.
One of the things that is so special about it, though, are the people like that, right? The Melissas, I mean, I could list everybody in here, because the people that are in here are always in here. They are a constant every single time I go on, and I've personally spoken with, I think, everybody in the chat who's usually here, right? Minus the people that you brought. I think I've personally spoken with all of them, probably at least once or twice.
Very cool.
And they're just amazing people.
Yeah.
And like when things are crappy, I just that's the thing that just makes this like, okay, I'm glad that I did it because of these folks. They're just great.
Right. It's amazing, isn't it? It really is. Even, we don't do the show as often as we used to. And when we do it, we still have so many regulars come back, so many people who just wait for us. And that's just the best feeling in the world. Because again, I go back to going, really? You want to see me? Like, what do you, like, truly, and like, okay, but I'm learning to own the fact that I am doing something that not only makes me feel good, or us, Mike and I, doing it for other people and knowing it makes them feel good, and that's what it comes down to. But it's super cool, and it's very humbling,
It is.
See that. And
it is.
We much appreciate it.
It is, yes. It's so humbling. Melissa, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm going to say it. I say it every time. Anytime anyone comes in the chat that hasn't ever been here before or decides to subscribe, I tell everybody, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Well, Mike says it right there. Your chat is your family. These people in this chat are just, to me, it's the greatest group of folks you'll find on the internet in one place. I swear it. They're just amazing. They're incredible.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's a great energy. Sometimes you do these shows, or and it's just like, ooh, you can just feel it coming from somewhere, and it's not always pleasant. But yeah, this is great. Even when I watch Mike's, Melissa, you got to go back and watch, because Mike was on here first. He had Mike.
Oh, it was so good.
And it was great. And I, the podcast and the podcast are not my thing normally, not because there's nothing wrong with them. It's just I gravitate towards music when I need downtime. It's just because of who I am. But it was very easy for me to listen to yours and want to pay attention and go back to it when I have time, or when I see that it's on and I can actually listen to it. There are not many that I can say that. And there's nothing against the people who are doing it or the shows themselves. They're great. But it's the same for me, like watching, people will say, what are your favorite paranormal shows? I don't watch them anymore. I used to watch them all the time for years. I don't watch them anymore. It's my whole life. So I need like a break from it. It's not an escape anymore because I wasn't living it then, like truly living it. I'm truly living it now. So now I need something different to get my mind away from it. So, yeah, but.
I agree. I get it. Totally. I totally get it. When you're here, you have to put anything like that. You're putting so much work and time into it that like when you have some free time, you are trying to take a break from that because you've put so much time and effort into it already, right? It's just like going to work, I mean, and I'm not saying like some people hate their jobs and stuff, I enjoy doing this. Doesn't mean that I don't have to put work into it.
Right.
I'm not putting hours and hours to do things. Like I say it, people don't understand what it takes. And I didn't know when I got into it, how much time it was going to take to try to reach out to guests, to communicate.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Trying to get guests alone is...
It's stressful.
It is.
It
is. Yeah. And you love it, but even for us with the show, that wasn't what it was supposed to be all about. Yeah. And it started to become that again, not because we didn't love the people we had on, because we chose the people we had on for a reason. But when you get, I'm not a broadcaster. I'm not a news person. I'm not an interviewer. Like, I just want to have a normal conversation or have it be laid back. I love promoting people, even if I don't know them. Like if I like what they do, I'll support them. But to always have to be on to do that all the time instead of just being relaxed and being ourselves, that is hard to do. Especially when you're working, you have a family, you have other stuff. Like I worked all day. I got home. I ran my daughter right to a job interview. I ran right home. I got ready, and now here I am. So like we have our own stuff going on. There's a lot to it, and people don't get it. Just the energy that you expel alone, it's
it's funny that we're talking about this right now because I had a couple people make some really hurtful comments on one of my recent shorts that I did to promote the show. They were very hurtful, and
I didn't see that.
And I think people forget that, number one, this isn't our whole life, right? We, like you just said, we have a life, we have family, we have work, we have real problems, right? Responsibilities and things that we go through that nobody knows about, right? And because we're humans.
Yep.
And so when the judgment comes, because I'm a human, it can still hurt me. Especially because these people don't know. They have no idea who they're talking about or what my life is like outside of here. So to jump to like any conclusions about who any people, just because you're here and you see me on YouTube, or you see Kristie on YouTube, or you see Mike, or you see whoever, it doesn't mean that you know them, right?
Right.
You only know what we share here.
Yeah.
And that's a very small portion. And I promise you, like, I share an awful lot personally, but it's still not, you don't know what my 24 hours are like every day.
Right. Yeah, no. And, and I think Mike and I tend to share a lot too, about our personal lives. And even when I do, I call it spiritual HIPAA because I'm a dental assistant. So I, resort back to the spiritual HIPAA. If my clients can't trust me, I can't help them. Right. But that goes, the other way too, because there are times where, if spirit is able to refer to a situation in my life that's personal in order to help me explain or deliver a message, I may be sharing something with you that I don't share with everybody, just to make sure you get what you need. So it's kind of like a two-way street. And, to have that respect and give the benefit of the doubt, especially people do not give the benefit of the doubt. If someone did or didn't do something, but doesn't mean it was intentional or meant to hurt someone or to, leave someone out or whatever the case would be, right? And even if it was, okay, we're human. Like it happens.
Right.
Perfect all the time. I'm not about that. I'm too real. I got too much going on, and like we said, I'm not putting on a show for anybody anymore.
Yeah,
not like that. But
not going to happen. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. And we're all prone to mistakes. We're all prone to pain. We're all prone to hurt. We all have responsibilities, and that's why I say this place can be very toxic at times. But thank God the upside is so much better than the down.
I agree.
And that's these people here. Like, look at right now, like Melissa and Micah have just been so kind this whole time,
They're amazing.
Yeah, incredible. Just those are the things that make you feel so good. Like this, come on, look at that. I don't know. How can they be? You're right. How dare they? How dare they?
We don't like mean people.
No, we don't like mean people. But yeah, we went from medium stuff to just life stuff.
Right?
See how that happened? That just kind of organically happened. Very creepy.
You want to know something else creepy?
What?
I have a little kid under my desk touching my knee. I have a little kid under my desk touching my knee.
You have a little kid under your desk touching your knee?
It's a little boy.
Where's this little boy from?
I don't know. But he kept tickling my knee because I kept like reaching down to
get out of here. Does that not freak you out?
No.
No?
He's in the light. I mean, to say that I'm not ever not taken off guard, of course I am. My gifts work a certain way. So if I do experience something I'm not used to, yeah, it's going to catch me off guard. Yes, I may jump or scream or, be startled. And then, the difference now is that I understand and I can discern certain things. So I'll know if it's out to get me because I've been attacked. So I know what that's like. Or, if they're not and I just got caught off guard and because I'm human. Yeah, no. And I don't feel like he's connected to you. I feel like he's connected to somebody who's watching the show.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm getting like the age of like 3 or 4, give or take.
Does that resonate with anybody who's watching? 3 or 4-year-old boy. Oh, that's sad. That makes me sad.
Yeah. I'm getting something about it. I feel as if it's like more of a some sort of connection with water, possibly like a drowning. But there's like a connection I'm missing or I'm not getting yet. So I'm not quite sure how that all fits together. And I know that doesn't sound right, but not, spirit doesn't always make sense. It's not always logical. That's why you have to trust your gut and your intuition because they work with feeling, not logic. So that's all he can give me right now.
Well, if that resonates with any of you, please don't be afraid to write that in the chat.
Or reach out to me privately. You can
reach out to Kristie privately for sure. I linked her page is in the description. Her Facebook is in the description, and the podcast I believe I put there too.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a question. And I don't know if it's something that you can do, but a couple, like one of the places that I go to investigate, is it possible for you to get a sense from just where you are now, if that place has something bad going on there?
Like if I'm sitting here, I'm going to be going somewhere. Yes, I can. Absolutely. People can call me and ask, a lot of people call and say, hey, I was referred to you because I'm having such and such happen at my house or at this building. And I can start picking up on things right away, usually, even sometimes enough to say, hey, this is not what you think it is. And like, I'm giving him a reading over the phone, and it ended up being Great Aunt Sue who died, who was doing her own thing in the house. And we just need to tell her to calm herself down, and sometimes we have to go out there. So, it just depends. But yeah, even if I don't get everything, I definitely get something.
So, if I told you that I had an experience at this place, is it possible for you to get a message like right now about
How
that?
come I'm seeing like stone or concrete walls?
Stone walls, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. 100%.
It's very creepy and spooky.
All over. They're everywhere there. They're everywhere.
But the environment just looks like dark and creepy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it definitely
What do you
is.
mean a message? What do you
Like
mean
I
a
just,
message?
so I was curious. So I had something happen at this place, that was, I'm trying to say something without giving too
Giving
much
me too much
away.
away. Yeah, I know. I get it. Yeah. Story of my life.
I had an experience that was shocking. That was like I never had an experience like it before.
I feel like you heard a bang and you saw something. Or you heard a noise and you saw something.
It definitely started out with a noise. I thought, and so I live stream. Like when I go out in the woods, I go live. I don't edit video. I don't do any of that stuff. If I'm out in my places where I investigate, I live stream it as long as I can. And I was lucky enough to my main area. I was able to live stream there all the time. I had enough signal where I could. And one day on a live, I went to a different part of this area. I heard something behind me. I remember panning the camera, looking over there, and I thought that I had seen something move. And then in an instant, I got like extremely disoriented. I mean, in an instant, I went from standing up to having to sit down. My legs felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds apiece and were made of jello. My head was spinning. I couldn't even think straight. Like I couldn't think straight enough to know where my car was. Like it was very, very weird. Huh?
Your chest got tight.
Chest got tight. I felt nauseous.
Feeling it right here.
Yep. I felt nauseous. I mean, it was just.
Were you in a part of the woods or in an area where I keep seeing like a partial, almost like they're referencing a place that Mike and I go sometimes. We haven't been there in a while, but it's one of our go-tos where you go into this park area or the woods, and there's like part of a hotel that's that used to be there, but it's not. But like the fireplace from the kitchen is still there. So like I'm seeing like partial parts of a building, but the rest of it's not there anymore. Do you know like remnants of this place? Is this making sense to you?
There's two things that fit that description there. There's an old fire tower that's not like half there. And then there's a very, very old stone foundation that's still in the ground.
Yeah, there's a gentleman there who is not only very protective of that area, but is extremely angry. That was him doing that to you.
Okay.
It's almost like you got walloped in the back of the head.
I have the biggest goosebumps. So
yeah. And he's dressed formally, but
so weird.
And it goes back a ways because the style of the tux that he's in is definitely, I'm trying to think of a movie that I can reference because I can't pinpoint the time. 1920s Titanic. Or wait, that was, yeah, right? 20s type, like, so I keep seeing her fiance from the movie in the Titanic. He's dressed kind of like that. And he had dark hair like the actor did. And he's his white shirt is like unbuttoned, like it's after, like the formal part of it is over. I can see the necktie hanging from the collar. He is pissed. You were like encroaching on his territory. How dare you even go near that area, whatever it used to be. My guys are also telling me he died horribly.
So it's really weird because on the live, I think the live just previous to this one of my subscribers sent me 2 screenshots.
Okay.
Actually, it was 3 from the live. And in those screenshots, there is a figure.
Standing with a weird face.
Huh?
It's like standing, and it's like a weird face.
So in one of them, it looks like a face. And then the other 2, it's a shadow figure. And it's the day. It's not nighttime. It's during the day. And he is and it's literally right off in the bushes behind me. Yeah. And in 2 of those screenshots, it's like he's walking like along with me as I'm walking. And I showed it and some people like brushed it off. But when I was there in those areas, it, like we talked earlier, that feeling of something being there was so overwhelming. And I just kept thinking to myself, okay, maybe there's Sasquatch here because that's what I'm here for. Maybe that's what it is. But there was no evidence of Sasquatch at the time. But it's a shadow figure. You could see through it. It's a head, it's shoulders, it's a torso, the arm. You can see the legs spread apart when it's walking. Yeah. And it's in
like
2 frames.
Like it's blur, like it's moving.
Yeah, and you can see the bushes through it, but you can see the shadow. And that's in 2 frames, and then the other one.
Water, because I keep picking up on a ship. So you had to have been by water in some way.
I was by water, but nothing where a ship could have been.
Well, but you don't know that. This is going way back. Maybe the ship has nothing to do with, like, you know what I mean? I didn't mean to sound like that when I said it. That was
no.
But like, I keep getting like big wooden ships, so I'm not even sure this has to do with this guy. It may even go back further. But all I know is I'm seeing a big ship in water somewhere. But there is water somewhere around there, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, like a big body, like a river or a lake.
There's 2 ponds that are big, about the size of a small or medium-sized lake, and then there's definitely a couple rivers.
Okay.
By there.
Yeah, it's the rivers.
This place also has a lot of history connected to it. Very old history with,
pirate ships.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know that there is a long history with Native Americans and English settlers in this area. There is actually, maybe I won't say it, but there's it's also the only place I've ever seen an orb in my life.
Oh, you didn't want to go there. Gotcha.
And that was at 1 that was at 1 p.m. in the afternoon in the daylight. And it was about a 2-foot, like, it was this big, and it was white. I mean, like white. And it looked about that big. It was moving through the trees like it had a purpose or a thought.
So from the spiritual side of things, to me, that's not an orb. That's actually a bundle of energy, like a spirit moving through, but that's how they present it, and that's how you saw it. Because I sometimes see that physically with my eyes. Now, I already know what Mike's thinking, because on the Bigfoot side of things, people have said that they have seen something very similar to that when they had experiences with Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think that's one thing I do remember. So I don't know. And it's funny because sometimes my idea of Bigfoot is this. If I am able to astral project and I am able to work in my dreams and in my sleep, I should say, why can't they do the same thing? If animals, right, are intuitive and capable of being connected on this level and more naturally than we are, why can't they? Why can't there be different planes? Why, do people see things and they're not real? Yes, of course. Human brain is the human brain. However, hey, you're making me look bad. Could you at least elaborate a little bit? So, just made me lose my train of thought. What the hell?
You were saying that.
Yeah, no, but true. Like, but when you have people say, "I've seen a little creature that looks like a gnome," or "I've seen a little thing that looks like a fairy," and you have all different people all over the world saying this, right? And the descriptions are too similar to doubt it. Why? Why would we doubt that anything can be possible? If nothing else, why can you not accept that anything is possible? If I can connect with your dead grandmother, and I keep pointing to the left because that's where spirit comes from. Spirit comes from my left, divine's on my right. Sorry. So for those of you who are like, what is she doing? I am Italian. I do talk with my hands, but that's not what I'm doing right now. So, so, why is that not possible? Look at, Edgar Casey and how he was able to do that. So, I mean, I've gotten into my son's head and called his name from across the house. Ask him about, as soon as I even bring that up, he's like, don't even go there. Don't even, like, if we can do all these things, and people in general are capable of this way far beyond anything they want to admit or even realize, really. Why can't anything else?
I agree 100%. I agree. I've seen and had too many experiences for me to not believe that there's just about anything possible. Yeah. Really quick, but I want to Mike wrote this about the orbs. They do, but orbs have been seen in other areas. Ball lightning can also show up during the day, but yes, I've seen the larger orbs too. The thing about it, Mike, is this thing moved around the trees. If I would imagine if it was ball lightning or something like that, that it would just kind of have bumped into a tree at some point. And you're talking about a very thick, dense forest. Right. It had to maneuver through to get around everything in there, and it did that, and then it literally just disappeared.
Yeah. So then that says to me, because Mike's forever the debunker, right? That's what he does for sure.
Right.
On team.
Right.
So and you have to be that way. You have to look at things like that. Not everything is spiritual. Not everything is a haunting. Not everything is. And as people, as human beings, we do have the ability to manifest our energy, right? Look at poltergeist, look at whatever. I knew a kid in high school who was extremely gifted. He just did not realize it. And his energy was through the roof. And he was, I don't know if it was like a big argument he had, but he was in a bad way. He had an argument with somebody, but it was like ongoing to the point where his energy was like insane. So he went out and sat in his car and just to get away from whatever the situation was. And he had the old cell phones that just started coming out when we were in high school, right? So he had it in his hand, right? And it actually shorted it. That's how intense his energy was. So if we can, as human beings, gifted or not, aware of it or not, right? Because it all comes down to intention. Because if we're aware of it, it just means we can put the intent behind it. Right? It doesn't mean we're not capable of it just because we can't put the intent behind it. So if we can do that as human beings and transfer our energy like that, there's so much more to us alone, right? And we, as advanced as we are with mental health and the medical world and profession and healthcare, we know a lot. But many mental health care professionals and doctors will tell you, we still don't know enough about the brain itself. We can't study it the way we need to while people are alive. You can't get in there to look. So the possibilities are endless. And the proof is all the experiences human beings themselves go through and all the things that happen throughout our lifetimes, right? That is the proof that there is so much more, that we are capable of so much more. That it's not our physical being, it is what's inside us. that is fueling the fire, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, agree. And I've talked about this a lot too, where I believe that anything is possible. I believe that we have so much more ability than we give ourselves credit for. I do think that we have got disconnected, I think, from a lot of it over the course of time because we start to rely on other things more and more. When you have things that do things for you easier and instantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start to lose the connection with those other abilities that you had, that you're born with probably, and that we all may have in us still. And again, right back to what you said about the Sasquatch, why couldn't they also have any of these kind of capabilities? It's what keeps this thing so exciting for me, is trying to figure it out and find out more. I'm much like Mike in a way that I am so objective about things.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be so incredibly objective because unless you can prove it, all of it's just a theory anyway.
Right.
And so I can't go, yep, it was a Sasquatch, unless I was there to personally see it with my own eyes and can say verifiably, yes, it stood right in front of me. I saw it. It was there. It was real. Then any knock I hear, any growl, any grunt, any, heavy footsteps, I don't know what it was, but it was something.
Right.
There was something there.
Yeah. And, think about it too. Like, how many times do you hear somebody say, especially about, these different sightings, no matter what it is, Sasquatch, Dogman, whatever. Yeah, I bent down to tie my shoe, and as I stood up, oh my God, there it was, and it was gone. Or, man, I went to turn around and I was doing one thing, and as I looked this way, boom, there it was. Think about it. You are in a state of mind in those moments where you're not necessarily connected on a conscious level, right? Because you're thinking and you're functioning some other way because you're in the middle of something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's how a lot, and so not all of them. I know some, there are many out there that, say, no, it was very real. I was very cognizant of the situation, and I get it. But to me, those other sightings and the way they happen just kind of back up how I feel already, because that's how spiritually things work for us mediums. You're catching, you have to be in that kind of frame of mind. You have to, get your brain to function in a way, that you're on that plane in a way, your brain waves you have to go right brain. You can't be left brain. So I feel like there is a connection somehow. I'm not saying it's all definite. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of similarities. To show that that's a possibility with how they function, or how they exist, I should say.
Yeah.
Don't exist.
Totally agree. You mentioned something a little while ago, and I want to talk about it real quick, because it was another thing that that's really interesting to me, and that's astral projecting. Mm-hmm. Now, can you explain what that is?
Sorry, Grandpa just kind of saluted me and walked away. I wasn't aware of him for a while, and I just kind of looked over, and he was like, and then he was starting to walk through the wall. So we're good. Okay. So, yeah, it's astral projecting is interesting. A lot of people do it, and they don't ever learn how to control it, or they just do it. A lot of people do it in their sleep, and what it is you are projecting on a more spiritual level. Into different planes of consciousness is basically what it is. Some people, you've heard, the classic stories. I was on the operating table, and all of a sudden I was looking down on my body, because your spirit, your energy literally left your physical being. Some people are very conscious of it. Some people are not. Some people are conscious of it in the moment, and some people don't remember when they come back. Have you ever, especially when you're sleeping, have you ever just felt like you were boom, and then you wake up, right? you feel like you got slammed or something. It's usually because you're getting back into your body. You just kind of, and then it wakes you up because it's hard, and there are other people lots of mediums who can, remote view, and they can do that. Remote viewing is a little different. They can kind of go like in a different way. I feel like their whole being does not go, they're not like literally in the moment, or physically in that area. You can also just do it with your mind, psychically, and that's a whole different thing too. But like, I'm sure Mike's already thinking of this. So like long before I ever was at his house, right? Mike and I live an hour and a half from each other, right? We're not in the same area. And we weren't even as close, friends as we are now. So like, I didn't even know a whole lot about him. And I just know that we were chatting the one night, and I forget, we were talking about something else, or some case or whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm in this room, and he's home with his wife. It's just a regular evening, right? And I'm seeing blue plaid, I'm seeing dark floors, and I forget something else, right?
You told me this.
Did he tell you that?
You told me this. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going, though.
I was in his living room, right? So I'm not realizing that that's what's going on. So I'm saying these things. I'm like, wait a second, what the heck? So I was doing it naturally, just talking to him. Like I was connecting with him that easily. We just have that kind of connection. Everyone has it with different people, right? Mm-hmm. So we were just chatting, and all of a sudden I'm there, and I'm like, what? And I'd never been to his house yet, never met his wife yet. And I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. And he's like, what are you talking about? Blue plaid, blah, 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 right? He was sitting on the couch with a blanket over him. So, he's not thinking about it. He goes to get up after we were done talking. He pulls the blanket off, he says, and he was wearing blue plaid pajamas. His floors in his living room are dark wood.
Oh, that's so great.
I feel like I saw the plants or something. I don't know. It's been a bunch of years now. I don't remember everything, but it was absolutely crazy. So you can do it. I do it when I read, when I am just reading people. I can just go, and I can actually go back. I don't want to say I time travel, like, let's not blow it out of proportion, but like in the moment, I will sometimes say, the spirit will bring me back, and I will be like in a memory. Like it's like I'm standing in a house, and I can describe the house you grew up in, or what you're, and I'll be like, yeah. And I can see the surroundings around me. It's not just something they're showing me or something they're telling me, like I'm actually there. So there's all different levels to that. And there's all different ways that we're capable of doing it. And we're all different with what we're able to do and not do. And yeah. So
again, I don't know if this is what that is, but I was I'm just going to say this like this. I had a very strong connection with this person, and then I was no longer able to see them physically, right? They weren't dead, they were alive, but I just, because of things that happened, I was no longer able to see them or be around them. I remember in my sleep one night, I was having a really hard time with this too. I remember one night in my sleep, I felt like I was in the room with them, looking at them. Like, I'm talking about, like, it was as clear could be, watching them sleep, because it was at night, obviously. And I woke up weeping. I mean, like weeping, crying so hard.
Yeah, I'm like, my eyes are starting to water.
Yeah. I mean, is that what that is? Is that some kind of projecting?
Yes.
And it's not the only time it's happened to me. Yeah. It's always in my sleep. Always. Yep. It's probably happened 5 times in my lifetime, but always
that
in my
you remember.
Yeah, that I remember. Yeah.
You remember. Yes. So yeah, it's a very real thing. And it's funny because when I was working with my first mentor, I was taking classes, and there's probably like 10 or 12 of us. And we went to her house before she actually had a school. And we would work with each other sometimes, or work with, volunteers. She called them guinea pigs. And I remember sitting at the dining room table. We all would separate and go throughout. And we were taking turns reading each other, and I was reading this one woman. And before I knew it, I was in a hospital room. And I could feel, it was almost like an ICU, but a bigger ICU room, because I could feel the glass and I could kind of sense the glass wall behind me, right? It's like I was standing in the doorway, and I was looking straight on in front of me, and I could see like all the medical stuff. And then in the middle of the room, there was this bed with this woman in the bed. And she became very aware of the fact that I was there. Now, I was learning. So at the time, I was thinking this was just a vision until I started to interact with her. Now, mind you, I am alive and awake and cognizant, and I'm just practicing reading on this woman at this table with me. And I start describing what this woman's telling me. And she's talking about their sons. She has a son, and this woman, she, meaning the woman in the hospital bed, has a son, a small son, or she did at the time. And the woman in front of me also had a son around the same age and same size. And so she was telling me, and then she showed me, she said something about like striped shirts. So I start describing the woman in front of me, her son, and how he was dressed that day, and talking about the two boys. And the woman was just kind of looking at me, almost like she couldn't believe it was going on either. And then I was gone, and it was over. And the woman sitting with me says to me, because I didn't quite understand it, and I knew something was going on, and I couldn't pinpoint it yet. She said, "You just talked to my friend who is alive in the ICU at Buffalo General, waiting to be transported to Strong Memorial in Rochester for a liver transplant. And you just described our sons and their friendship, and what my son, or I forget it was her son or the other woman's son, who was wearing the striped shirt that day."
Whoa.
Yeah. I was like, what? Huh? But it was very different. It was not like a typical reading, and I was there.
Holy shit. Yeah, that has to be so overwhelming, man.
Yeah. And people who have mental illnesses, people who are autistic, people who are in comas, they can all do it. I have communicated with people in every scenario like that are alive and well, or on some sort of if they're on life support or whatever, they're already, but people who are autistic, people who are, disabled in some way mentally, they, their brains already function in a way that I meditate to get my brain to be that way. My brain already kind of functions that way, but you really put yourself in that state or in that zone. So yeah, it's very, very possible. And so if you ever wonder why, like if, certain people are drawn to work with people with special needs or things like that, it's because they're drawn to that. It's usually because they are gifted and either realize it or don't, but are still drawn to do that work. And, so many times I have friends that would say, oh, I had, there was this cute field trip and People's Inc. was wherever. And this person came up to me and took my hand and started talking to me and telling me things. And we just connected because they just are already able to do it. Spiritually, they're on that level already. It's beautiful, and it's really cool. Kids with autism, same thing, it's pretty cool.
It's funny. It's like no coincidence that these things are even coming up, really.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's usually the natural way of things.
Yeah, it's just not a coincidence. I did that work for years.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I did that work for years. I started doing. Huh?
That had to have been overwhelming for you.
Well, yeah.
Rewarding, but overwhelming.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah. It was so rewarding, so fun at times, but yeah, very emotionally draining. I started doing it when I was in high school. I volunteered with the special needs classroom that we had, and but yeah, it was just what you said. It was this almost instant connection. Like one of the kids who was in the class just came up to me in the hallway one day, like out of everybody in the school, just came up to me, grabbed my hand and started talking to me and dragging me around. And then that was it. Like we were best buddies after that. I had to go volunteer and help. And, but yeah, I used to say a lot, like, that, you know, they're not, their brains are not like overrun with all of the bullshit that ours are. They're much more innocent. They're not focused on all this garbage, right? And people would say, like, you know, people say mean things, and I always felt like maybe it's not them who are the ones with problems. Maybe it's us.
Yeah.
Maybe they're really, because so many of these people that I worked with were so happy and so loving and just, yeah, they didn't worry, they didn't judge. It was none of that. And isn't that how we're supposed to be? Like, isn't that what we strive to be as human beings? I understand that there's something else there,
right?
But you know, at the core, they were all so special.
Absolutely. It's like they're blissfully oblivious.
Yeah,
right? Not oblivious in the wrong way to the things in their surroundings, that they're able to just be who they are.
Yep.
And it's funny because I was like that growing up. I just did my thing. Like I said, I just was me. I really didn't worry too much about, I just did my thing. And I had gotten together with, about a year ago now, another medium in the area and a friend of mine, and she's amazing. And we just kind of got together, and I went to her house one day, and I was sitting on the one couch, and, you know, her furniture, like, it was like an L, but there was a space in between you could walk through. So there was nothing behind the couch I was sitting in. It was like a hall, you know, just like the hallway going into another room. And she was sitting facing me, and we were just chatting, and all of a sudden, and I could feel the shift. So I had a feeling something was behind me. She's like, your grandfathers are here. I said, are you kidding? So she said, my one grandfather said to me that I needed to go back to the way I was when I was a little kid and just stop worrying about everybody else around me and just start doing my thing and being who I was, being carefree and just not even concerned or aware of what was going on around me. And he meant that in a good way. I needed to get back to that when I was a little kid. And he was absolutely right. Because that was awesome. Like, there was a lot of crap I dealt with, you know, in my childhood, but as far as me being me, yeah, I was always me, you know, and that's part of what set me apart. You know, not that I wasn't liked or whatever, but I was picked on, and I think all kids are picked on, you know, in one way or another. But I was kind of different, even though I could blend in at the same time, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know, people liked me, but never enough really to make sure I was included or whatever. I had a couple of friends, you know, but that was about it. But actually, looking back in hindsight, kind of feel like I was being protected at the same time. But as a kid, you don't understand that, you know, and it's for the best, but you don't understand when it's lonely and you aren't, you know, don't understand why you're not good enough. And really comes down to the fact that it had nothing to do with being good enough. It just had to do with the fact that, you know, you didn't belong there, and that was okay not to belong there, you know, but it's hard when you're in the minority because it's everyone else is the same and you got something else going on, you know, but yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I can totally relate to that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know, like, again, the things that you struggle with, you know, not being enough, but like you said to me when we talked prior to the show, and I hope I don't butcher this, but it was something along the lines of basically like, you know, you are who you are for a reason, right? That's what, like, we can only be that. And that's who you're supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with any of us. You're built exactly how you're supposed to be. but it's easy in this world to kind of forget those things. It's just the way things are, and the way things are designed, and the stuff that they pump every day into your brain. It's hard. It makes it hard.
And it doesn't take away, again, there is a balance, like free will. We do choose to let people in, and we all have come from situations. Like I think Mike, when we were talking about the father thing earlier, I think he did make a comment in there. We can't blame our dads. Like there is a certain point where, yes, there were things that happened to us or things that we went through, right, that do help to shape and mold us on some level. But, at a certain point, we also, especially when we acknowledge and can, acknowledge that, it also means we have to bear the responsibility of being aware of making the changes that need to be made, if that's the case, or doing better or getting healthy or whatever it is. So, that free will balances back out, right? Somebody else's free will was forced upon us, but we also have the free will to do something about it.
Sure.
So we are who we are, and we figure it out as we go. And that scale just kind of, goes back and forth until we can balance it the best we can.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to ask you a few more questions, if that's okay.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Micah asks a question, and I want to make sure that we talk about this. She asks if animals connect with each other on a telepathic level.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I figured as much. Yeah, I figured as much. It's crazy because I told you before, if I see an animal that needs something, if it's homeless, if it's starving, I have to help it. Like I have to. I can't walk away.
Yeah.
It will haunt me. I will be physically hurt from it. And so I have like cats in the neighborhood that I lived in that I still go there daily to feed, even though I don't live there, because they don't have anybody else. And I can tell you, like I've had situations with some of these animals where I felt like 100% they were trying to tell another animal that needed help, come here because this person will help you. I know people will say, oh no, it's because they smell the food. I'd never seen these cats in my life. Like they just showed up.
Right. And why can't they have their own language. They have their own ways of communication. That's what animals do. That's how they function. That's how they live. So why can't they do that?
Right.
Why not?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And why can't they connect on a more spiritual level? They are innocent, like you said, and they have animal instinct. There's an instinct, they are different from us, which is kind of cool, on that level. When I had my son, my older two kids, we had this dog, and he was a Beagle Basset mix. He was a little bastard, man. He thought the pecking order was Bill, then Oliver, and then Kristie, and that just was not flying with me. But his instincts were off the charts. Like we lived downtown in the city of Niagara Falls at the time, not a good section, and we had railroad tracks and field behind us. I mean, this dog would wake us up in the middle of the night, barking and like mad, trying to get out of the house because he could sense people like half a mile away from the house walking through a field, not even trying to bother us, just walking through the field. And it was crazy. So one day, like I'm at the house doing dishes or whatever, and I'm just doing my thing. And all of a sudden I'm noticing that he's like right on me. And he was not like, he would sit with you and he would want to be in bed with you and stuff, but he wasn't, especially with me, the cuddly type. And all of a sudden I'm doing dishes. He's sitting at my feet, literally on my feet, like on me, like to a point where I'm like, you got to get off me. I can't even move. I would sit on the couch. He would jump up and sit right on my lap. That happened for about 2 weeks. And then I found out I was pregnant with my son.
Oh my goodness.
As soon as I found out, he backed off. It was the craziest thing. Oh. It was just, and then it was almost like a new tug of war because when I was like 6 months pregnant with him, I remember coming down the stairs one morning and I'm smelling this horrible smell. I could have killed this dog. It's like he had his own little personality and he was going to make sure I knew it. Oh my God, I could have killed him. I'm coming down these stairs and, ladies pregnant, certain things do not sit right. He pooped in 6 different places in our living room. Now, mind you, we'd had him for like a year, okay? He was not marking his territory. He was telling me who was in charge. Oh my God, I was so livid. To this day, unfortunately now, I can't scoop poop. I can't take my dogs on walks because I can't scoop it. It's awful. I can't stand the smell. Give me a baby all day long. Human, it's fine. I'm a dental assistant. I'm in people's mouths all day long. I've seen it all. Oh my God, I smell that and I am ready to go. It's awful. It's awful. So like he definitely knew what he was doing because now I felt like he was retaliating. He made sure I was okay and protected me. And once I knew it was all good, but then it was, wait a minute, because now you're going to add somebody else into the mix. There's a pecking order and he wanted to make sure he made sure I understood who was in charge. And I was like, yeah, no, we have a problem here, dude. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I'm telling you, they do know. They really do know,
Agreed. Yeah, they definitely do. They definitely do. What the heck was I going to ask you? Oh man, now I lost my train of thought. The dog's over here moving around all weird, and that got me like, took me all out of my spot.
I get it. I understand.
He's this. We talked a little bit about him. He's such a sweet dog. I'll tell you. It's my nephew.
I have a niece.
Yeah, I do.
Looks just like him.
Yeah, that's right. We have the weird genetics in our family.
Yes, I have 2 nieces. One's a human and one's not.
Right, absolutely. He's such a sweet boy. I dog sit for my brother whenever they go out of town or whatever, because he knows that we have that connection. The moment I get here, when I lay down at night, he has to be on me. I mean, his head is on my chest all night long. If I move, he moves. He's got to be there. Animals are just special. They're just, and this is what I heard when you said something earlier that made me think about it. There was do you remember the Pet Psychic? Do you remember that show?
Yes.
It was an elderly, like, British lady.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, I do. I can't picture it all, but yes, I do remember that there was a show like that. Yeah.
So she was on like Animal Planet or something, and it was a TV show, so you never know, but it seemed like she was very good at what she did. There was a little girl. She was about 3 or 4, maybe around 4.
Right.
Her dog, who was like her everything, but similar story to what you just said. Yeah. When mom became pregnant, the dog was there, and the dog would not leave her side. When the baby was born, the dog slept in the room on the floor next to the crib. When she was old enough to sleep in a bed, the dog slept in the bed with her. I mean, this dog was hers before she was even born. There was a connection, so the dog ended up passing away. Only she was 4. I think the dog was like 6. So he passed away very young. And when they asked her, the mother said to the psychic, like, why do animals, even the ones that live their whole lives, die so young? The little girl says, I know why. And I think everybody in there was like, oh boy, what's she going to say? And what she said was like one of the most profound things I think you'll ever hear from anybody, especially a 4-year-old. Mm-hmm. It's because they know how to love unconditionally before we do. Mm-hmm. I cried like a baby when I watched that. I mean, if you believe that our jobs, like one of the main jobs of ours here, is to become a better human being, to ascend to a better level, like you said, our souls, then learning how to love the right way has got to be part of that.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
And they do. They know how. They know loyalty like we don't, and they know unconditional love like we don't.
Yep. I totally get it. Yep. And even with our gifts and our priorities and the things that we need to be aware of and more cognizant of, even that changes. With me growing up, animals were not a thing. My mom is not an animal person. She loves them from a distance. The only reason she's kind of been forced to kind of accept and be more hands-on with the dogs because well, I had one when I was married, and I still go over and help with the dog and everything too. But my sister got a dog, my daughter has a dog, my oldest daughter, and so she's kind of been thrown into the mix. And when I was young, I remember we found a cat behind my aunt's house and we wanted it so bad, and my mom gave in, and we brought it home. My dad carried it and held it and whatever else. We named it Peanut. Still remember this thing. We were young. We were like 5 and 6 years old. But she made it stay in the basement because she's, didn't want hair all over and whatever else. And that was like her idea of the compromise. Okay, fine. And then one day we came home and we were told it ran away. Apparently I had allergies and it was bothering my allergies so bad, even not having it up in the house all the time, but having it come through the vents. Like truly, like we had to get rid of it because I was not able to handle it. And so, that was her effort, but because animals were never like family, never really had them. It just wasn't it wasn't something at the forefront for me, I guess you could say. Like people were my thing more so.
Yeah.
But as I have progressed, especially in the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, animals have really become a thing for me. Like I could watch the commercials, to see how awful they were treated, and all these, commercials that ask for help, and my heart would go out to them. I would definitely sympathize because I would never, human or not, I don't want anyone to suffer.
Right.
But there's a different connection that I have now in the last few years with that. It hits me to my core in a way that it did with humans. Now I get it with the humans and with the animals. And when I see an animal and I look in their eyes, although I could see, yes, that was no soul, and yes, I could connect it. It was more of tangible connection for me. It was nothing like it is now, and it is so much deeper for me. And I just sit there and I think, oh my gosh, so we even evolve, in those ways. We never, with our gifts and our connections as human beings, but as we ascend and as we become more aware of our higher self, right? And that all changes for us. So, what once was normal for you may not be normal anymore. And what you never even looked at before, not for any particular reason, you may now be noticing, right? And that goes for all different things and all different levels. And it's just crazy because the animal thing is huge for me now. And Mike and his wife are huge animal people, especially with dogs. They have a huge history with dogs. And I'm just like, holy cow, I just can't even, and like I have my grand dog, Basil, and he is a corgi poo. He's more of a, but he ended up not being, Abby got him when he was, 8 weeks they're allowed to go home, or 10 weeks. They drove to Ohio to get this dog. As soon as she saw pictures of him, that was like that instant connection. She's the one I was telling you before the show, was the one who thought she was going to be a veterinarian. Like she'd go up to the biggest, craziest, most scary animal and be like chasing after her, this little skinny, scrawny, nothing, little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, like, this big, mean, scary thing, animal, whatever it was at the time, whatever animal she's going up to. And I'm like, no, it's going to hurt you. And she's like, no. And she, not a care in the world. And the animal, whatever it was, would just be fine with her. And it was just crazy. It would scare the crap out of me. She just had to touch, and when she made a connection with her dog, boy, let me tell you, man, he is like a human being. They've treated him like a human being since the day they got him. And he's only like 2. No, he's over. Yeah, almost 2. And he will come up and he will just snuggle right in on you, and he'll look up at you just like a little kid will do. Like the feeling, the connection there, he is absolutely more human than anything. Like the emotion that's there. It's really cool. It's really cool to see, but he's also all over them when they sleep. He's at her head. He is like, that's her dog. Like that is the connection there. Right. And it's just nuts. He just, It's so cool. I don't even know how else to say it.
No,
It's
it's amazing. I just there's something about them that's always resonated so deeply with me. They're just very special, and I think I just think it goes back to those things, like when I was a kid, and like that loneliness that you talked about, where you just didn't quite fit in,
yeah.
um, when I didn't have friends like that. I always had my dog, and
Oh,
my
see, at least
dog.
you had a dog. I didn't have any animals.
Oh yeah, we had
Yeah.
two great dogs. I mean, the first dog was the greatest dog I've ever had. My mom will probably say it if she's still here. But he was just such a wonderful dog. He was a mutt back then. He was half black lab, half golden retriever. Now people would pay $2,500 for a dog of that mix. They call them some kind of special whatever
Right.
breed.
Right.
But back then, if you were two different types of dog, you were a mutt. We got him for free, and just he was so special. He would wait by the door. He knew he knew what time you got home. Like he just was embedded in him. He knew it. So whenever it was time for someone to come home, he'd make sure he was right by that door.
Right.
And his tail would be wagging, and it was the first thing you saw when you got in. They're just special. They're just special.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do we live many lives? Does our soul live multiple lives? Do you know the answer to this?
I believe we do.
Yeah.
And just going to put it out there, I'm Roman Catholic. You are taught that is not.
That's not something.
That is not something that happens, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely believe we do, because that is all part of the ascension and the goals you set for yourself in this lifetime, the things you want to accomplish in this lifetime that help you ascend. So past lives will follow you, things that you don't accomplish, past life issues follow us.
Yeah.
It was really cool because I even did, it was still during COVID, but it was kind of like in the down when we're going into the downside, because I went to, met up with somebody who did a past life regression with me, which I felt was going to be very hard for me to get into because, it's hard for me to calm my mind. I mean, I meditate, I can do whatever, but I really felt like it was going to be different than what it was, but it works perfectly. And at first, just like everybody else, I was kind of like, holy crapes, I got into it so easily. Like when she was bringing me through it, it was so fast. Part of me was still feeling and thinking like, is this really happening? Is this really, but the other part of my brain's going, shut up, stupid. This is working. Just let me do my thing. Right. And I went right into it. It was the coolest thing because it lined up with exactly what I was going through with my marriage at the time. And I went, oh my God, like now I'm understanding why I keep repeating some of the cycles I do and what my issues are now and why I need to do what I need to do and why it has to be this way for everything to get better for everybody. And holy cow, right? And I have lived it before. And then it also showed me some of the issues, my fears with relationships and why, even with loss. So it was the neatest thing. So yeah, absolutely. I do believe, and even Mike and I, our friendship is just, he's one of my best friends. One of my best friends. Couldn't even imagine my life without him at this point, simply because I can, we have lived, I think, 3 lifetimes, and we were married in one of them. And it was just crazy. I've been told, like, my father and I, he's passed on now, but we were sisters in one lifetime. We were married in another. We were warriors in another. It's really cool, but you look, and I do believe that our spirit guides, we work with them before we come back with each lifetime so that we can know pretty much what our situation is going to be. We can choose our situation if we want, the parents, the life, how we're going to come through, because we need to learn and achieve certain things in order to one day not have to come back and do this anymore, right? Because if people will say, okay, well, if it's that easy and we can just do it, what's the problem? Well, free will's a bitch. It's free will every time, right? So, it is our responsibility to try to figure this stuff out and trust and follow our gut and do what's right and live, not only for ourselves, but especially for the greater good, because this life is not just about us. It is especially about humanity and people in general as a whole. That's what COVID was really supposed to teach us, or one of the big lessons that COVID was supposed to teach us. We got way too involved in me, and my personal rights and our rights as a whatever, and what's being done to me and what's not being done for me. And guys, we are screwing ourselves over hard on this one, because unfortunately, we are our worst enemy. And with technology and the way the world is going, it's a big, huge blessing that we are able to have the things we do. But wow, like you said earlier, has it taken us away from some of the fundamentals that we need to so seriously get back to desperately, like now, because we are missing out on the basic human needs on every level, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. We are missing out on it, and we are going to really pay the price. And we are already starting to pay the price, and it's not a good thing. But that's basically it. I mean, the goal is not to have to come back to do this anymore and live life like this anymore, to one day be able to stay in the light, right? And to just be there and happy and carefree and whatever else. But some of us, I also do believe, as healers and mediums, I do believe we can choose to come back. Because we have a job to do, and because that is who we are. Once a medium, always a medium. Some people choose not to acknowledge it. Some people are not meant to be that. Some people are just meant to be intuitive, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just who we're meant to be and what we're meant to do. So yeah, but I do believe that our spirit guides have the blueprints of our lives, because that is their job. From the second we're born to the second we die, it is their job to keep us on the best they can, on track with what we need to do here and how we need to do it, without interfering with our free will. So they can show us all the signs and make us feel the pull the best that they can. And at the end of the day, they can be pulling at the back of our shirt, dragging us in the other direction as we're going in the opposite direction. And eventually they have to let us go and say, okay, we'll meet you on the other side, whatever that is. And then we'll go from there, because they cannot interfere with our free will. But yeah, so that's the long answer to that. Yes, I do believe that.
Yeah, I've kind of always felt that way myself. I mean, I had the lady that I used to see years ago. One of the first things she did when we met, she said to me, she goes, I'm getting something that you don't like to fly. And I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. That's something that's so common, right? I'm like, yeah, oh, maybe. I didn't want to tell her yes or no. And then she said,
you were one of those. I gotcha.
I was.
Let's see how much she's going to tell me on her own. Okay.
Right. I didn't understand it, but
my mom is still like that, and she's gotten readings for many, many years. And I'm like, Mom, really? You gotta like throw them a bone, man. You don't understand. You gotta validate.
Yeah. But I didn't understand. So I was like, I'm not giving this lady a thing. I'm shutting down, and she better give me everything on her own. And well, she did that day. She surprised the hell out of me. She said, yeah, you have a terrible fear of flying. She goes, you also don't like the ocean. But she before I could even say anything, she said, but it's not the ocean overall. It's only dark water where you can't see your feet.
Ooh.
And that's a very specific thing. Yeah. And it's very true.
Uh-huh.
And she says to me, she goes, do you want to know why you're scared of those two things? And I said, sure. She said, because in your last life, you were a pilot in the military, and your plane crashed in the ocean, and you died in the ocean, not from the crash, but from drowning. And in that instant, the goosebumps on my arms, it was like she told me something that somewhere deep inside, I knew it, but I had no idea I knew it. And it all made sense ever since then. And I'm terrified of flying, and I cannot stand being in water where I can't see my feet or the bottom. I can't stand it. It scares the hell out of me. But
that's so funny because I have a fear of drowning. So I know that I drowned in a past life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like the water. I'm not really afraid of it, but there is a fear there that I have of it that I've never been able to understand. Not necessarily with pools, but more the ocean or bigger bodies of water. But I've always I've had that fear, and I've also had fear of heights. But what I did notice is that free falling. So like I can't, like as a kid, I was able to do like Ferris wheels and stuff, but it terrified me if the cart would move. Like everyone had to be still. And if we were stuck at the top, God help me. It always seemed like we were stuck at the top a whole lot longer than the people that were on it when I was in line waiting to get on it. Because as soon as I got on it, I was stuck up there, no lie, for like 10 minutes. I'm like, what the hell are they doing down there? Are you freaking kidding me? And that was as like a kid and a teenager. And I'm like, nobody freaking move. Move. As long as we didn't move, I was good. But even as a kid, I could look out and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm appreciating the view. Hell no, I'm not looking down below, because I just had the feeling like I had fallen and like it was horrible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I noticed as I got older and more in touch and more in tune with my gifts, that also I think played a part, because I felt like I became more open and aware in general. I feel like it did. And people have said this, like your equilibrium is kind of off because you're not always, for lack of a better way to say it, I guess, stable in that way. So because you're kind of off kilter on that level, I think that has something to do with it. Because I could go, one of my favorite rides as a kid and as a teenager was the big swing that would go up and spin you around. I loved that. High up. But a Ferris wheel, forget it. But as an adult, let me tell you, I am truly fearful of that now, and I can't go on it. My youngest, who's now 16, when she was like 4 or 5 years old, really wanted to go on it. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Her dad, my husband at the time, was like, nope, not doing it. He never did heights like that. Me, I wanted her so badly to be able to go on this ride because she was tall enough to go on it, that I went on it. And she looked at me and saw how I was truly terrified. At one point, I see her little hand reach over, and she said, "It's going to be okay, mommy." And she holds my hand. Swing to swing. This entire ride, I was beside myself with fear.
Yeah.
And she was there for me the whole time, like, "Mommy, it's okay. I got this." Like, she just stepped right in. And I think it bothered me more to know, what the hell? Like, how did I go from loving this as a kid to being truly terrified of it? Like, I couldn't even, I couldn't handle it. I was in tears. Yeah. I was in tears, but I did it for her. And I don't know how I got there, but I feel like part of it was because, well, I do. Like, at the time, I'm like, what's going on? But I feel like part of it was because it is a past life issue. I do feel like I fell, or something happened where I fell to my death or crashed somehow. And then part of it is the equilibrium. Physically, I can't handle it anymore. And I think it's because I'm as open as I am now. It throws me off. So
yeah, I can't do anything with heights, and that's why. And it doesn't, for somebody like me, something like that doesn't really make sense, because for the most part, nothing scares me. Nothing. Like I'll ride a dirt bike backwards, upside down, with no helmet, 150 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stand in a cage and let a guy punch me in the face over and over.
Well, I wouldn't do that, but
I'm
good. You can have that one.
I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot that ever really, made me scared of doing it. I do just about anything, but it was always these two things that I was terrified of. Like, no roller coasters, no rides that are high, definitely no planes. And if it's dark water that I can't see the bottom in, I ain't getting in it.
Oh, and that's what was interesting too with my past life regression. What it was I was actually the wife of like the captain of the ship at the time. and it was the coolest thing because I was reliving it, like how we talked about, going through it with somebody else and watching it happen
Right.
with somebody else. I could feel myself as her, me,
Oh, so cool.
going through. Yeah, it really was. But I was extremely unhappy. It was a relationship I did not want to be in. It's not even that he necessarily mistreated me. I didn't love him. He wasn't right for me. I was miserable and I didn't know how not to be. And back then, because we were on this big wooden old ship, like it was awful. But what happened was we ended up dying in a fire on that ship. So that's part of my issue with water. Even though I don't mind water, the big open sea, like that kind of explained it for me in a way, because we got stuck or trapped down underneath. And and then the ship sunk. So that was a huge thing. So I was actually able to get answers, at least to some degree, about that fear and why, that issue, the past life issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy. It's just crazy stuff. Salty has a great comment here. He said, food for thought on means reincarnation. He fixed it in his next comment. One of the guys who ran our local hospital, a Freemason, had the layout changed to put the hospice unit right behind the maternity ward. Now, why would he do that?
Well, I mean, it could very well be that he just didn't think about it, and that logistically, maybe with the building and the planning.
But
but I'm also going to say the history of the Masons.
Yeah.
I mean, go there, and yeah, you're right. You're opening up a whole new can of worms.
Yeah.
But that's a cycle of life, right?
Right. Absolutely.
It doesn't even have to be a bad or creepy thing or a negative thing. No. It really could just come down to the circle of life.
Yeah. 100%.
Your friend Melissa was trying to get people to reincarnate, souls jumping into the new whatever, but they're their own souls. So who knows?
Yeah.
Is that an easy thing to do, or isn't it?
Yeah. Who the hell knows?
There's so many different ways with that one.
Yeah.
That's a great thought though.
For sure. Yeah. I put it up and I was like, I gotta put this up. This is really good. Your friend Melissa actually says something about Sylvia Brown, and I remember this. Sylvia Brown believed that we wrote our lives with our guides before we come back.
Yes, I do believe that too. And I did not realize that she did that. As much as I was involved and interested in her, I have not read her books. Oh. I have not done research on her. I just knew that I was drawn to her and what she could do and how she could do it because it was similar to how I was able to do things and how I lived my life. That's what attracted me to her the most. Was the connection on that level. So yeah, but I did not realize that about her at all.
I remember her talking about the Hall of Records, where the
Akashic Records, yeah.
Yeah, the Akashic Records, where everybody's records of their lives is.
Yep.
I mean,
I know some people who work with that. Yep.
Really?
I have a member who works with that, and she has worked with her own. Yep.
That's incredible.
She's in the middle of doing that and working on that. Absolutely. I have not. I don't know if I'll ever get to that level. I do feel like it's something you have to be pretty ascended to be able to do. But then again, I guess I also believe that, if you're meant to do it, it'll happen if you need it. Your guides and your angels and your whole spiritual team will, the divine will make it happen and help you because you do have that help,
Yeah.
Right. Your loved ones who pass on, but you also have the divine. They come from my right, whether it's your personal spirit guides. And I did see somebody asked about ascended masters in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe in that. And actually I refer back to my dental background when people ask me about what I believe when it comes to like spirit guides and things. I do believe we have the four main food groups, for life. So we have the four main spirit guides. So that would be like your general dentist. So you have like the life joy guide, like the love. You have the teacher guide. You have like the work financial guide, and you have a protector guide. And for me, like my life joy guide is like the nucleus of all of it. And then I do believe you have like dental specialists or your ascended masters. I break it down like that because it's easier for people to kind of tangibly understand it, in a way we can understand it on this level. But yeah, they come in and out as we need them. Absolutely. And I do believe that some ascended masters and some spirit guides were human at one point, but I also believe myself personally, they have to be pretty ascended and pretty pretty good to go on that level, because I don't believe that the majority of them, because this is my experiences, it could be different for another medium. So it's not that one is right or wrong. It's our own personal experience in this lifetime. I do believe that the majority is not. I do believe they are more divine. They were not human. I believe that's something that is truly earned. So, because you're right up there with the higher ups and the divine on that level, as far as that's how I see it. So you got to be pretty good and pretty special to have accomplished that, which I don't feel like is easy to do, right? Obviously, for any of us. So
Right.
Yeah, but definitely, and I actually kind of teach that when I teach my spirit guide course,
Okay.
or my spirit guide lecture.
So like our guardian angels part of that food group? Yes.
But there, just like there's a hierarchy with, in a pecking order with guides, angels are a whole different thing. So sometimes people will say, "Oh yeah, my guides were with me." They'll like kind of mesh guides and angels together, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's however you understand it, or however you feel. People don't understand that there's a difference, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a difference. And angels are much more ascended than our guides are. And then there's even a hierarchy. You have your regular, like your messenger angels, your guardian angels, your archangels. So there's a whole system with that as well. Yeah.
I was told by that lady that I used to talk to that she said that my grandmother was my guardian angel. She said that she's with you all the time. And to me, and like, again, so I never told her anything about her whatsoever. She must have had a very strong connection with her, because she knew things about her very, very quickly. And it was only like, that was the thing. She could tell me things about my grandmother that were so like perfectly aligned, and then other things in my life and with people that weren't so good, like they weren't so clear, right? And it goes back to what you're saying, like her connection with my grandmother had to have been very good for her to know these things. But she told me that, and I guess I fully believed it, just because of the connection that me and my grandmother had. It was so special. It was so, and I only got her for such a short time.
Yeah, you really did. You really did. And I take for granted the fact that I had all four of my grandparents and two great grandmothers until my first great grandmother passed when she passed on my birthday, my freshman year of high school.
Oh.
So, and my other great grandmother, my older two kids knew, because they were like 3 and 4 and 5 when she passed. So even they got to know her for a little while. Like, she was around. My family is very young, and there's a lot of generations. So we're very blessed in the way that, there's a lot of overlapping, and there's a lot of family and a lot of time with family. But unfortunately now, as much as you've had them all, you're going to start losing them all. And that's what's starting to happen. So my only grandmother passed, or my dad's mom passed, when I was a senior in high school. And she was actually my go-to when I would become afraid or I was not able to understand things. I called her, even though she was extremely devout Catholic, but she never made me feel, because I could never explain what was going on. I just knew I was afraid when no one was home, things would happen. And I would sense things that I couldn't. I would physically pick up on things. That was the empath. I could physically maybe sometimes I would see colors or splashes, or the air would kind of change and look plasmic or wavy, like you're looking through like the fumes of a grill. I would know something, sense something intuitively, but my brain, like there was no, I had this going on, this stream of energy and this stream of energy, but nothing to connect it to help make sense. Like my brain couldn't comprehend it to connect it all. So I couldn't understand, but it put me into overload. So that was the grandmother I would call, who would just stay with me. She never made me feel awkward or bad about it. She never questioned it. She just was there for me. She believed me. She validated me. And she's the one who passed first. And right before I graduated. And that was very difficult. But I have had all of my grandparents up until all three of them up until 3 years ago. My mom
Oh, wow.
passed first, right? And so I'm 45. So all three of my kids have had their great grandparents and their grandparents until a few years ago. So my mom's dad passed 3 years ago, or going on 3 years ago. A month later, my father passed. He got sick out of nowhere. And then just going on almost 2 years ago, my dad's father passed. I still have my mom's mom left. So very blessed to have all of them and not realize it at the time. And, talking to people like you or friends over the years, saying, grandparents, I never knew my grandparents, or, oh yeah, they died when I was young. What are you talking about? And here I'm like, oh, my grandparents this and grandparents that. I'm having sleepovers and birthday parties and interactions, and everyone's a part of my life and involved in everything. And people are like, oh, it's not very special. Oh, you have to go there. Why do you have to go there? Because to them it wasn't a big deal because it wasn't a thing. Like it, they never had a chance to let it be a thing or be special. And here I was like, I didn't know anything different again, right? Just like everything else, I didn't know anything different. And yeah, I was very blessed in that way. So I always feel bad or sad for people who didn't have that, and kind of guilty in a way too sometimes.
You can't feel guilty. Come on.
Yeah, I know. But it's, your heart goes out to them but now, I'm getting the other end of that because, as you get older, you realize, yes, I have all these people, but you're going to start to lose them. One day it's going to just start happening all at once, and it is starting to happen all at once, and it sucks.
Sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah. I talked about this with with somebody just the other day. It was like you go through your whole life for so many years and you don't think about death, right? And you just don't think about it because it's not a part of your life. You're young, you're invincible. Nothing's happening to you. Your body doesn't hurt. You can sleep 2 hours, get up the next day and go, for 18 hours like a bat out of hell and you do it all over again. And nothing bothers you and all that shit. And your parents are still fairly young. And, like you said, you have your grandparents on. And then one day it's like, I woke up in my 40s and my mortality became a real thing.
Yeah.
Like a very real thing. And it's very, very scary to think about the fact that all those years where you spent not worrying about it and thinking about it. And now, I'm having health issues and some of them are very serious. Potentially. And, it's a scary thing, but that's why learning about these things can bring some kind of peace to that stuff.
It can. And, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, doing what you do, it must not be that bad. Hell no. Are you kidding me? I don't care if I'm going to be able to connect with them. And I can't connect with all of my family the way I connect with other people's. Quite honestly, my dad's mom, the one who passed first, the one who was my go-to, who was my rock when I didn't know what was going on. She was around really strong for a little while. And back in my teenage years, again, I kind of knew, but I had no true grip on anything, right? She was around and really tangibly let me know. There were a couple of instances. Actually, the first time that I had an experience after she passed, it was like a month after she passed. I was home alone and I was doing homework on the couch, and we had the cordless phones back then, and I had forgotten. I always had it with me, always had it, so I could call somebody if I needed to, right, to break up whatever was going on. Because usually I was petrified and I was stuck on my bed or on the couch or whatever, and I wouldn't move. I would not even attempt to leave the room or go through whatever the hell this was in the room with me. And I just remember sitting on the couch, and I think my sister and my parents had gone like a hockey game, and I didn't want to go, and I was doing homework or something. And all of a sudden, boom, that feeling came over me, and I looked up and there was something across the room, but I couldn't make sense of it. And I was petrified. And I was like, okay, I need to get to the phone. I need to call grandma. And then I was like, oh shit, I can't call grandma. And I started to cry. I was just like, grandma, I need you so bad right now.
Yeah.
I need you so bad right now, and I can't have you. I can't even believe I have to do this by myself. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 30 years later, and I'm still crying when I talk about this, I felt this hug come from behind me. Like she wrapped her arms around me. And it's just this wave of energy. Like I just felt like everything was going to be okay, but I felt secure and I felt good and light, like everything went away and I was safe and I could feel like she was hugging me. It was the best feeling in the world. It did not go away until someone came home. I heard somebody come in the driveway about an hour later. And as soon as that happened, it was gone. Just like as if I had called her, you know, and that's what would happen. Someone would come home because back then grandma went to bed at 9 o'clock and grandpa would watch the 11 o'clock news and then go to bed after that. It was every night, it was the same thing. If I called and she was in bed, grandpa would always go get her and always give her the phone. She would always talk to me. Even if we said nothing, she would just stay on the phone with me. And it was exactly the same. So there were a few times where very physically or very obviously she was there and I felt her. But then after a while, as years went on, I still had a connection and I would talk to her, but I didn't feel her anymore. I didn't sense her. And then one day I realized she wasn't around like she used to be. And then I wasn't connecting with her the way I could with other people. And after a while, it's like, what's going on? Why can't I? I mean, okay, yeah, I know she's around, but what the heck? Even my own dad, after he passed away, he was already connecting with me and talking with me, and other family members were not. And I was like, holy cripes, like this is like going back to the earlier conversation at the beginning of the show, how weird, like, oh my God, this is really happening. Like I hear his voice and it's not my head playing games. Like I feel him. I know he's there. This is just like connecting with somebody else's family member. Holy shit. And then I had a reading with, you have your own medium friends that you go to when you need help or you need to bounce something off of, or they can read you, you need a message or you need clarity. So I went to Melanie and my friend Melanie Rimkus, who's amazing. And she's like, yeah. And your dad said, when he talks to you, you will hear his voice. It is going to be in his own voice and you will feel him. And he was right. He was validating what was already happening. And I thought I was crazy because I was still grieving, and it was right after he passed. Some of our family members will act like guardian angels and they will absolutely be obvious in guiding us. So my mom's father, my father, and a cousin of mine who passed away of breast cancer all come from my right. They're on my spiritual divine team, as I call it. They work with my guides and everybody on my right. But other family members come from my left, just like everybody else is. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're right. So like, that's how I know who's truly like a guide for me, even though they're not one of the divine guides. They are absolutely there working with them. So it's pretty cool. But there are only a couple of people who can connect with my grandmother, my Grandma Johnson, the way I connect with everybody else. So if I need something from her, I really need to connect with her, I go to this one woman who is a very close friend of my family, who knew my grandma for years and was very close to her. She goes to her. And there is a very rare occasion where she will connect with me or she'll contact me and say, hey, your grandma's here and she's got a message for you. Because I feel like my grandma, actually, well, I don't feel, I was actually told by my guides finally recently, I've had like a breakthrough of my own about her, because it's almost part of my own next step ascension in a way. It's pretty cool. I was told she is so ascended that's why it's difficult for me. But when I do the work and I get to a certain point, I will then know because I've done that, because I will be able to then connect with her again on my own in a certain way.
Oh,
pretty cool. But she actually came to me one time and helped me finish grieving my dad about 8 months ago. And it was very overwhelming. I was home alone, Bree was gone. And I was like, all of a sudden I knew it was her. And it came out of nowhere. And it's been, like I said, almost 30 years since I felt her that way. And it was just this whole half of a night where I was just grieving and letting go and growing and just getting over and dealing with, and finally able to release a lot and then connect with her in a way I had not. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's incredible. I had a really, really tough time, like for about 10 years, I was struggling really bad with drug addiction. Um, it initially started when I got hurt and was put on painkillers. And the painkillers, when you get put on a medicine by a doctor and you've never I've never taken any painkillers. I didn't know much about them. I just wasn't my thing. I didn't do that stuff. And you have a doctor put you on medicine, and they tell you like, you're going to need this obviously for the pain, and they don't tell you anything else. They don't warn you about the side effects. And so, I remember I didn't take them at first, and then I did because I just couldn't sleep. The pain was just too bad. And I started taking them, and I remember the very first moment where like I felt the feeling that ended up becoming a feeling that I chased for years. I'll never forget that moment. And that one moment led to 10 years of some of the most horrible, it was bad. It got so bad. I mean, I was homeless. I was literally like withering away. I'm a big guy. Like I'm about 6'2.5". I usually, like when I'm not fat like I am now, I usually, my normal weight's around 230 or 240. Like I'm not a small dude. And when I went to the last detox I went to, I weighed 172 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, I was dying. And through 10 years, I mean, I'm very open about this because I think it's important stuff to talk about. I injected heroin. I injected fentanyl. I was still using when fentanyl came around back in like like 2013 or 12 or 10 or whenever the hell it started coming around.
Right.
I watched so many people die from this stuff. I mean, I so many. When I was in rehab once, it was an all-male rehab. I think there were 220 of us there. And over the course of the next 6 months, there was that I knew of, and this was only in 6 months, there were 50 or 60 that died from that rehab that I was with. And that was just like in the next 6 months. I don't know how many more passed away over the course of the next however many years, but I can tell you that I've lost so many people that I knew to this illness. There is absolutely no reason that I should be here. I should have been dead. But from what I was doing, I should have been dead. I know, like, my mom is probably listening, and it's hard to listen to, but sure. She was part of this, and she saw it, and she knows, like, it was bad. It was very bad. I have to believe that there are two parts to it as to why I'm still here. One of those has to be somebody kept me safe during this. And the other one is that there has to be a purpose for me. That was not, that I never finished. And I have to believe those things, because otherwise, if you add it all up, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be. So I have to believe these things like that we're talking about tonight. And I truly believe that my grandmother was there trying to keep me safe that whole time. The hardest thing I ever did in my life, The single hardest thing I ever did. There's nothing that even compares to it.
I couldn't even imagine.
Nothing.
I couldn't even.
Nothing. I can tell you, and I've done a lot of things I think in my life that were pretty tough. That was the hardest, and it doesn't stop. It's not something that just goes away. You carry it with you for the rest of your life. Yeah.
You have to live it and breathe it and accept it and own it every single day.
Every single day. Every day. It's like, somebody used this metaphor in treatment. Like, it's like having diabetes, basically. Like, you have an illness, and every day you have to do something to treat that illness.
Right.
And it's true. I have
responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. But I just so for me, like, I fully believe that that we all have purposes here, that there's a bigger plan than we probably ever think about, for the most part. I don't know what the hell my purpose is. I have no idea.
I don't think any of us truly know. We just
nobody's doing a good job of telling me what it is, but
I think you're doing a pretty good job of figuring it out. And I think Mike hit the nail on the head with his comment in there too. I agree with him.
I didn't even see what he said.
Yeah.
You are here to help someone else. Yeah. Probably. I mean, I think there were people who along that journey were so important to me, like to help me get to that place where I was finally clean and sober. That without them, I don't think I would have got there. And so, if that's why I talk about it openly, if anybody, if it can help one single person, then,
that's wonderful. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. If it helps one person, it's incredible.
It's got to help you too.
Yeah, of course.
Talking about it and sharing your story, and it's got to be positive and for you.
Yeah. If you keep these things in, you try to cover them up, but just, I think it makes you sicker.
Oh, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. It just makes you sicker. I don't have any shame in it anymore. I did for a very long time. I'm not ashamed that I'm a drug addict. Like, and I say that because once you're a drug addict, you're always a drug addict.
Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic.
Always an alcoholic. Yeah. So I'm not ashamed that I'm a drug addict. I'm not even ashamed of some of the shit that I did when I was using, because I now know the difference between what my illness does to me and who I am as a person. Right. So when I'm sick, that illness has so much power that it takes you outside of yourself. It turns people that are good people into people who are doing terrible things.
You're 100% right.
Terrible things.
My mom used to say that to us all the time back when my dad was drinking in his drinking days. We were young, and we'd say to her, "Why are you putting up with us? And why are you whatever?" And he wasn't even a classic drinker. He did not drink at home. He didn't I did not live the typical, family alcoholic kind of a life, but it was still bad, and it still affected us in lots of ways. And, she'd say, because you don't understand, my parents were together from the time they were 15, 16 years old, because this is not him. This is not, the addiction turns you into someone you're not. This is not who your father is. And, and he was a living, breathing example, just like you, every single day in recovery for almost 30 years or for 30 years, and you're right. It's what you make of it and how you move forward with it that matters.
Yeah, for sure. But I just, I had to say it because I truly think that it pertains to the stuff that we're talking about. I
agree.
There's something that there's a bigger purpose for everybody here. There's something more to all of this. Even when you feel like there's nothing, even when you feel hopeless, helpless, and just like, you want to give up. And trust me, I still feel that way sometimes. Like we said, I'm human. You know, life happens, things happen. You get down, you hit a spot where things just aren't going right, and it's it gets easy at times when things are so shitty to feel hopeless. But you know, there's definitely something bigger for all of us that we're supposed to do and supposed to learn or supposed to pass on to somebody. And so I try to talk about it as openly as I can, because it, nobody's life is worth losing over, you know, any of that shit. It just isn't.
No, I agree. Nope. I admire you for everything you've been through and the fact that you're willing to be open. There's so many people who will not own it, even if they do get help. And I think it just hinders you.
Yeah, it
You know,
does.
it hinders your recovery. It makes it harder.
It does 100%. It does. You speak it out, you get it out, you know, that you get the poison out. And so I think it's so helpful if you do it. The problem is that people are raised different environments. They're taught different things, that, you know, you don't share personal things with the world. You don't talk about things like this. They make you look weak. They make, you know, all that stuff. And it's not true. It's not true. You know, but yeah, it's crazy. I when I think about it, and I don't think about it often, but when I think about it, I don't know how I survived. I just don't. I mean, I was the worst kind of drug addict there was. I couldn't, it didn't matter how much I had to do more. Like, you could have put a pound of it in my lap and I would have done it all. And then Ben went like, where's the rest? You know? So if that doesn't speak to there being a bigger purpose for me, then, you know, I don't know what does.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Whatever that is, we'll figure it out.
I think it's a lifelong journey. We may get some answers, but the big picture, we're never, I don't think, ever going to really know it.
Yeah.
I think that's our kind of like our reward, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think, but really, if we get down to brass tacks, and you put it all together, I'm probably meant to be an ice cream tester. I think that's what I'm supposed to be here, right? Or a Pop-Tart tester, because we all know how I love those blueberry Pop-Tarts. I'm joking.
I keep myself from spitting that out and keep it from going up my nose at the same time. Okay.
I'm joking, kind of. Oh boy. Well, listen, this has been great. You've been wonderful. I had a very good time. I hope you did too.
Oh, I really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was super. I'd love to have you and Mike back on sometime together and talk more about some of the investigations you've done.
Sure.
But I really wanted to dive into this side of stuff tonight while I had you here, because I've been wanting to for so long, and you were wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. You have a great show. You really do. Your people are awesome.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
They really are. I don't even need moderators. I don't. Nobody ever says anything mean or nasty, or we don't get trolls. Like, just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And trust me, there's people who do not like me.
I find that very hard to believe, but you know what? It's their loss.
They don't. Trust me, they don't.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's all right. They're missing out.
Oh, thank you. But you know what? To each his own, right?
That's right. That's right. Not everybody's going to like you, right?
Nope.
It's fine.
That's okay.
That's fine.
We have nothing to prove.
No, we don't. Is there anything that you want to plug? Anything you got going on coming up?
Actually, things are pretty quiet right now. No, I don't really have anything coming up publicly right now, but Mike and I are going to go on a moose hunt next month.
A moose hunt?
I mean, I think we kind of shared that story, right? When he was on, where we went, did he show that story where we ended up, we were in the Adirondacks a few years ago, We went to do some investigations out there, and then on the way home, he had been pining to find a moose. Like he was obsessed with finding a moose on this trip. So wow, we're in the area. We got to. So finally, the last day, like on our way home, oh, we're gonna hit this state park. Oh, this is gonna be great. No, they're known to be through here, right? So we're both tired. We're both ornery. We're both whatever. But he is hell bent on finding his moose. We had like a 6-hour drive ahead of us, and then I actually kept my car at his house. So when we got to his house, I still had another hour and a half to drive home. So no, we'll just do this. It'll be great. We ended up going through this park 15 miles an hour because it was a state park. TomTom or Garmin, the whole system that day went down. So we lost our GPS. The whole Garmin internationally had some sort of issue. Phones were not working, right? It was hot as hell, even with the air conditioner on. We didn't see so much as, I think we saw, what was it, Mike? A squirrel. I think we saw a squirrel, and there was something else we saw. Definitely no moose. Definitely no moose. So that was a fun conversation calling at the time going, yeah, I'm going to be a few hours late coming home because we're stuck going through this park right now with, yeah. And I was sitting there. I was so pissed. So irritated. He's like, I'm sorry. This wasn't supposed to be. I didn't know it was going to be 15 miles an hour. I didn't know we were going to lose. I'm like, so done, so over it. We'd spent days together. I was like, you know what? I gotta go home. But it was funny. So we are going with a friend of ours to do a little Bigfoot research and to find a moose.
Oh, that's great. I've always wanted to go on a moose hunt, man. I really have. I think they're just such amazing creatures. They're so big and dumb.
You're right. Big and dumb. Well, they're mean from what I understand.
That's because they have a small brain. They're stupid. They're wicked dumb. That's why they're so mean. I mean, I love animals and I love a moose, but they're stupid.
Oh man!
They have a head that's this big and a brain that's that big. Doesn't work right.
So that'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll go live at some point. That's going to be, I think, mid-August, right? Like the second weekend of August, I think.
Oh, awesome!
But my oldest daughter's getting married, so I had to kind of keep things. She's getting married at the end of September, so this summer's kind of quiet because we have a lot going on. So.
Okay.
Different focus this year, but yeah, after that, I'm sure things will pick up again. We need to. Where's my sage? Needs to get out and do some live investigations. We haven't done one in a long time, so we will do that as well. But but if you're ever interested in reading, I do them all virtually, and I've been doing it long before COVID that way, so I can read you from anywhere. We can do virtual parties. Watch our show, watch our pages. We're going to be all over coming up here and doing some new things. As soon as life calms down a little bit, but. Yeah.
Salty, what a jerk.
Mike, that's more for you, my friend.
Oh God, he makes every show. It is so no fail. Every show, Salty makes me laugh out loud. Every show. I mean, and he's not the only one. But he is so consistent with a comment that will make me laugh out loud. It's great. There are definitely pranksters here, Miss Trey. It's so good to see you too, by the way. I want to say this. Micah, thank you so much for being here. It's 4 a.m. where Micah is. I mean,
yes,
that's amazing. I really, really, really appreciate you being here. I wouldn't be. So it was 4 a.m. I'm sorry. I just wouldn't. So you're amazing.
Yes, she is.
You guys all rock. I'm so really, I just love you all. You guys are so great and so supportive and so funny and so wonderful. And I wouldn't be doing this still without you. I really wouldn't. I will be back on, what's today? The 26th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I will be back on Sunday. I'll be back on Sunday at 7 p.m. with our good buddy Dewey Edwards, the Dewster. Dewey's going to come on. Man, I talked to Dewey for the first time about a week ago on the phone, and we talked for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and this guy's he's got a lifetime of stuff to share, like literally a lifetime. He's been doing this for a very long time, and he shared stuff with me on that phone call that was just really interesting stuff. So
Really?
it'll be fun to listen to all his stuff. Remember, he's if you guys don't know who Dewey is, Dewey's really good friends with Martin Groves, who's had like one of the most incredible Bigfoot dogman encounters that
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
Martin's a retired police officer from Tennessee.
Okay.
Not just any police officer, by the way. He's very downplays it a lot. He
Okay.
was like Fraternal Order of Police. I mean, this guy is like a very, very, very respected man.
Wow.
And he has one of the most incredible sightings of a dog man that you will ever hear. Him and his partner had this happen to them in the LBL years ago.
On the job.
Oh no, they were together just going out on like a camping trip.
Okay.
And this happened to them, and it was it really just, I mean, it gives me goosebumps when I listen to him talk about it.
Wow.
It's terrifying, absolutely
Wow.
terrifying.
I'm
So
gonna
Dewey's
try
like
that then.
one of his good friends. They go out together in the LBL and look for these crazy things still.
They
I don't
found
know
it.
why, but they do.
Why
but-
do any of us do anything we do, right?
I know. Somebody, I'm like, why you're looking for dog man? Like, keep no thanks. And somebody's going, well, you're looking for Bigfoot. Like,
Right.
you're not crazy. I'm crazy, but you're not. All right, touche.
Touche, right? That's
Touche.
right.
Miss Trace, I need to know where to send your quicksand. I have quicksand for you. It's not quicksand. You can send me quicksand. Oh God, never mind. I forgot. I wasn't even knowing what I was laughing at. We had this whole thing back in the day, like when I first started this channel, about how quicksand used to be on every TV show. And growing up, we thought it was like the most dangerous thing in the world that we were going to come in contact with. Because like every TV show back in the 70s and 80s,
It
people
did.
would get sucked
Yes, it was
into
big in the
quicksand.
80s, yes.
So
Yeah.
we joked and we were like, I really thought when I grew up, quicksand was gonna be a much bigger problem.
Right.
So I made
No.
I made a commercial, like a very parodied commercial about quicksand, a PSA about how dangerous quicksand is and what you need to survive it. So it's an ongoing joke, the quicksand.
All right.
And the rescue.
I like ongoing jokes. The inside jokes are fun.
Yeah. Well, if you want to laugh, you should watch that. You should go back and watch that, and the Sasquatch foreskin jerky.
Wait a minute. Were you talking about that on the show with Mike? Or did he tell me something about? Okay, I heard something about that.
I don't think I mentioned it to Mike, but
Maybe
I haven't mentioned it in a while.
Oh my gosh, maybe it probably wasn't you then, but that sounds very familiar, and that's a little disturbing.
Yeah, it's a little disturbing, but yeah, it was fun. It was funny.
Very cool.
Anyway, so yeah, I'll be back Thursday. Miss Trey, if you really have something that you want to send, obviously I won't turn it down. Very grateful. You can email me very quickly. Let me put this up because I forgot to put it up earlier. You can email me right there. It's Kyle4180, CONNOLLY. Matter of fact, you know what I'll do? I'm going to put it right in the chat right now. You can email me and then we can talk and I'll tell you where you can send whatever it is you'd like to send, dear. Did I didn't even spell it right. What an idiot. What an idiot.
Oh, and so before we go, I do have to say that your grandma
Yes.
left a few minutes ago, but she started to walk away and she turned around and she blew you a kiss and then she waved to you like this. Like she waved like this, not like this, not like that. It was very specific, like her hand was going up and down like this.
I mean, I don't know. I'll ask Mom.
Yeah, that's what I just have to tell you what I see. And she was like very.
There's so many memories that like I don't have that I feel like I lost because I was so young for most of the time.
Right.
The ones that I do have, I just they're always there. They're always there. It's why I still watch professional wrestling to this day.
Really?
I watched that with her and my grandfather every weekend. I'd sit on the floor and they'd watch it and I'd watch it. And as a kid, I loved it. And I'd do like my own color commentary and, play by play. And so for me, it's so much less about the wrestling and more about the nostalgia that like I shared that with her and with him. So yeah, it's why I still watch it today. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. At least I have those things. So anyway, I'll be back Sunday. I might pop in actually for a real quick live here in a day or two, because I have been going over the audio that I hadn't gone over from the property, and there are some things on there that are pretty interesting. So I might do a quick audio review here in a day or two, but we'll see. If not, then I'll set something up for next week. Anyway, thank you guys for being here so much. I'll be back on Sunday. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and a good start to your weekend. I'll see you then. Good night, guys.